Hello everyone, and welcome to the History Unicorn Reddit Finds. Today we are recapping the amazing stories discussed this past week, from around Reddit. Links to the original posts are in the description below. This is going to be a longer video than normal, so let's dive in, and find out exactly what goes bump in the night. When I was in high school, I went camping with some friends around Piney, Texas. It was the middle of the night, and I couldn't sleep, so I got out of my tent. I was the only one awake. I was just sitting on the ground smoking a cigarette when I saw light from the corner of my eye. I looked and nothing was there, but right after beautiful singing started. I got up and looked over to the opposite side of my friend's tent, to see a naked woman singing and walking. She was majestic and stunning, and had long blonde hair flowing behind her with a beautiful singing voice. I felt like I had to go up to her, drawn to her. I called out and asked if she was okay. But then right after I did, in a blink of an eye she was gone. I never saw her again. I had nightmares about it to this day. Has anyone else experienced anything like this? Or experienced anything paranormal in that area? Here are some of the comments from this post. Creepy Dead Girl commented. Reminds me of that alien race with the blonde hair. I can't think of the name, but they're supposed to be really beautiful too. Runwaplups also commented. Something is in the woods around Mineola, Texas. Cryptid. Cult. History of the area suggests both. Absolutely frightening. Let me know what you think OP encountered. Was it a cryptid, something paranormal, or something more human? So first time poster, but this seems to happen to me a lot. To make long story short, as a kid experienced shadow people and sleep paralysis. Through my life I have always had demonic dreams of me fighting them to save my family or me. I get these episodes, whereas I am laying in bed with my eyes closed. Even next to someone when my head feels like something is shaking it violently. But my head is not moving at all. I get paralysis and cannot move, but can hear everything in the room. And I am screaming or trying to touch my wife to break free, but as the shacking continues it feels like I am being swallowed by a darkness that is pulling me deeper and deeper into darkness. I am screaming for help, but nothing comes out or try to move. And after some time fighting with all I might, finally a whisper comes out or a flinch of movement. Once this happens it is like it breaks the spell and I come out of it. Just wondering if I am the only one this happens to, or what the hell these spells are. To note with these fits, I am completely awake, but cannot move, speak, or open my eyes. I can hear everything that is going on around me. The TV, wife talking, dogs barking, but it's this black feeling that is pulling me down into the abyss. The head sensation is also weird, it is like someone is shaking my head violently. But I am not moving as with these episodes. I have asked my wife and she says I do not move. Here are some of the comments from this post. Agalina369 commented. I have had almost the exact thing happen to me about 4 times in the past 2 years. Except I scream through my spells and end up on the floor somehow. I have no control over my body. It's like an out-of-body experience. I freak out when this happens, and cry. And am scared when I come to. This is new to me, just started a couple years ago and are horrific. This is temporary also commented. It's the start of astral projection, Nori3406 advised. This sounds like a type of seizure. I'm epileptic and have experienced moments like this. Please see a neurologist. OP responded to Nori3406. Weird thing is that when I dream sometime my wife thought I was having a seizure. And it started to scare her, so went for testing. When this would happen she would try to wake me up and I would wake up right away. I did actually go in and have a MRI CAT scan done and they didn't find anything abnormal. And they did look at epileptic seizures, but all my tests came back normal. They also did a night study that lasted a week, where they hooked a cap of electrodes and all the test and brain patterns came back normal. Ashfember chimed in. You're not alone. I experienced the same thing, and I also had a lot of full-blown sleep paralysis attacks when I was younger. This feels like that, only different, if that makes sense. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think about OP's experience? Was it a seizure or something more paranormal? This experience happened about 18 years ago. And I'd nearly forgotten about it until I was talking to my college suite mate recently. After years and years of no contact, we reconnected via Facebook. And she asked if I'd had any weird, possibly paranormal, experiences in our freshman dorm. She and I both registered at our university late, for similar reasons. Long story short, we'd both been all set to go to better universities on promised full scholarships, when the financial aid package ended up being not as great as the admissions officers promised. And ended up getting the last 2 rooms in the freshman women's dorm, single rooms. Smaller than other dorm rooms. That shared a bathroom. In the winter of my first semester, I was awoken one night by a noise in my room. I have insomnia and am a very light sleeper. I glanced at my desk next to the bed. It was always the first thing I saw when I opened my eyes, and saw something dark, all shadows, hunched over it. At the time, I thought it was my winter coat draped on the back of my chair rather than hanging up. And thought nothing of it. When I didn't hear any noise again, I figured it was just someone out in the hallway coming in late, and went back to sleep. The next morning, I woke up and looked at my desk. And noticed my coat wasn't there. I hopped out of bed to see if it had slid off the chair and onto the floor. Nothing. I ran over to my closet and saw that I'd, for once, hung my coat up. So what had I seen hunched over my desk? I had a few weird incidents in that room. Mostly things being moved behind furniture or under my bed. But nothing as blatant as that. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What do you think OP experienced? Was it a shadow person or a noisy co-ed? Just hear me out. I live in Puyallup tribal land, and I have heard of Wendigos and Skinwalkers, etc. I was on my way home, in an area where sometimes the unhoused hang out. So when I saw this thing crossing the road, my brain tried to rationalize it as an unhoused person, behaving and looking really weirdly. A few seconds later, my eyes caught up to my brain. And I just knew that wasn't an unhoused person. The details of what it looked like are too strange. It jumped on the road ahead, probably 10 yards or so in front of me. And began running from my left to my right. It was running from the sidewalk of a parking lot into the front of the local DSHS building. Where, had it been a person, and at the speed I was going, I wouldn't have been able to see them on my right. It was hunched, about the size of an Irish wolfhound or slightly bigger. And it looked to be running either on all 4 limbs or so hunched that its long arms almost touched the road. It wore a cape or long coat, which covered its body except for the hands, which were long and spindly. This cape thing was light brown, almost looked like it was made out of fur. The worst part was the head. I saw that super clearly. It was a big head, with a long snout. Kinda like the aforementioned wolfhound, with shaggy brown hair dangling on one side. And I could clearly see a long mouth. Like, long. Slightly open, and I could see teeth. I saw its eye. It was shiny, almost reflective, and orangish. It ran fast, it dangled its arms and it as I drove by. I slowed down to look and nothing was there. I have a dash cam, so I thought for sure I can check it. The quality is crap because my glass is dirty, but you can see me slow down. I tried to crop those 2 minutes, so get a clear view. There is a very bright car light coming towards me, on the opposite side of the road that would have for sure been blocked by a person or animal running across it. So I'm over here trying to email it to myself, and it won't send. I'm trying to save it, and it won't save. I get home and I'm telling my husband who's never seen one, or a rendition of one. So I Google it and the first image I see is the one I've attached to this post. I was flabbergasted. That's literally what I saw, minus the jewelry, spear and feathers. Plus the arms were long and the hands were creepy AF. So now what? Am I cursed? There isn't much info out there and I am not sure what to do. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. Did OP see a skinwalker, or was it someone more human? Hey. So a few days ago, I saw a shadow through my door and my dog noticed it too. My door is glass with a sheer curtain over it, and at about 1:30 AM I woke up because my dog was wagging his tail in my face. He was facing the door and I saw a tall dark shadow on the other side. I sat there watching it and it shifted its stance and then walked off. I was too afraid to follow it, and was weirded out that my dog was friendly towards it, because he usually growls or barks when people go near the door. I did not feel that it was malicious, but it was super odd. And just a few hours ago, I am home alone and I heard my name being called. My dog growled at this voice, so I did not respond. I looked around the house, and there is no one there. Here are a couple of comments from this post. HorrorGal82 commented. Eek. The first part, the way you wrote it sounded like possibly a real person on the other side of the door, but last part I don't know. Creepy. Higher Roller also commented. I've had encounters twice with shadow people, in my house. The first time, I saw it sitting at the end of my bed, when I was living alone. Oddly enough, it did not scare me. I felt no bad intentions from it. I also had my name called by it. The second time was just a fleeting glance of one walking into my bedroom while I was in the hallway. Again, I felt no negative vibes. I think they just coexist in our reality. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. Did OP encounter a shadow person or something more human? So, I don't exactly know how to explain this, but I'm home alone. My fiancé is at work and this seems to happen every time he's not home. I'm 20 female, for reference. I have two cats, Nix and Django. Django and Nix are super cuddly and make noises all the time. But the usual meow or purring is all that I hear from them. Unless they're play fighting. Anyway, I've been home alone all day today. Cleaning, playing Stardew Valley, and playing with the cats. It gets closer to when my fiancé comes home, and after some hard work in the bathroom, I lay down for a bit. The moment I lay down, I see lights outside my window, and I hear the front door to our apartment building open, keys, and then the door to the actual apartment building open, close and subsequently lock. My immediate thought was that he's home. And I brought a blanket out to our living room, because our apartment's frigid, and he mentioned feeling freezing at work. He's a lovely man who works very hard to make sure I'm happy, so it was the least I could do. But as I go out, my cat Nix is sprawled out on the ground, looking at the door. And Django is on top of the chair I usually sit in, making strange sounds. Normally, if they were in any other position or wandering around, I could chalk up the noises to my cats just making similar noises. Something didn't sit right with me. I went outside of our apartment, into the hallway and looked around. No one. But I could hear laughter out of the laundry room, which didn't have its lights on. Once again, something didn't sit right, so I peeked my head outside in the snow. So I could see if our co-worker's car who'd driven him in that day, was in our lot. Which it wasn't. No cars with people around or in was there. Which confused me further. I decided to go back inside and lock my door. I lay back down, when I hear and see everything again. Except both my cats are making agitated noises in the living room. And I get even more uneasy. I text my fiancé about what happened. Hoping that maybe I just couldn't see him, and he'd asked our co-worker to drive him to the store or something. But he hasn't texted me back, which I think means he's still at work. I go back into the living room, to see if anything has changed, and Django is in the kitchen. And Nix is in the same spot. I swear to God this exact situation has happened to me at least 4 other times, that I can remember. Let alone other situations that just made me uncomfortable. Though it's only when it's just me in this apartment. It's just so unsettling, and I know it's not, super out there, or anything, but it still puts me on edge. I don't know if this happens to my fiancé. He's never really mentioned anything like that. I'm gonna talk about what happened today with him, when he gets home. I'm so happy we're moving soon though. Hopefully, it stops when we move. Here are a couple of the comments, from this post. Gal Axie commented. Hope you're okay. Try to stay calm when unexplainable things happen. Sorry, I can't give better advice. But whatever it is has been there before, and hasn't hurt you, so no need to fear it. OP responded to Galaxy. It was just extremely unnerving. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. What do you think OP encountered? Backstory. When I was 2, my dad was a semi-truck driver. While on one of his deliveries, his brakes failed and he got into a bad accident, resulting in a very bad head injury that would cause seizures every now and again. My dad was sick most of my life, up until he died when I was 9, and he was bedridden most of the time. My father was a devout Pentecostal Christian, with a no-nonsense attitude. And he never believed in ghosts or anything of that nature. I grew up in a haunted house, and distinctly remember him getting irritated with me when I ran to him terrified of encounters that I have had. On Christmas Eve in 2002, when I was about 7 years old, my family had their annual Christmas party, but Dad was upstairs in bed resting. I remember getting excited as someone dressed up as Santa, and I ran upstairs to tell Dad that Santa was there. But when I went into Dad's room, it was dark aside from a single lit candle on the dresser. My dad lay on his back, looking forward. He told me he saw death. I remember this encounter so vividly to this very day, 20 years later. My father said that at the foot of his bed was this hovering, cloaked figure with red eyes but no face. Dad said the very second I entered the room, the entity darted out of the room through the wall. I believe it 100%. My dad never filled our heads with ghost stories or anything that would scare his kids. Again, he was a no-nonsense man. And I believe that experience changed his views a bit that day. My dad passed from an aneurysm on November 11, 2005. My last memory of him was seeing him deep in a seizure, before I had to leave for school. I believe that the entity was a warning, but I'm open for discussions on what you all think it could have been. Here are some of the comments from this post. She tears up my commented. I believe it. My friend and I got into this really bad car accident in New York City. That totaled the car, but we were untouched. A year or 2 later, we were hanging out with another friend, when our other friend's doppelganger showed up out of nowhere at the front door. It was by far way scarier than the car accident. I never believed something like that would happen to me, though I grew up haunted as well. My time might be running out, but so is everyone else's. Bioexterminator also commented. First off, I'm sorry for your loss. I cannot imagine losing my dad at such a young age. Second, I believe he saw something. When my dad was dying in 2019, he said he saw his best friend, who fought with him and died in his arms in the Vietnam War. His friend told him it was time to go, and Dad hung in for another couple of days, before going into a coma and dying in the ICU. My mom had an encounter like that after having major surgery. They accidentally overdosed her on Dilaudid, a very strong narcotic painkiller, and she went into cardiac and respiratory arrest. She said her mother came to get her, and told her to go with her into the light. She refused and was revived by the ICU team, thankfully. Sibylia added. My husband and his family saw the Grim Reaper on the farm they lived at. They were outside at night, and it just floated across the yard, looking straight ahead. He said that it never turned its head, and looked at them. They were all freaked out. Goofy Goobers also commented. I have seen and felt death, as well. When my cat was very sick with kidney disease, and it was just a matter of time before I had to let her go. Death just stood in the corner of my place, just watching, waiting until I finally had enough strength to take her to end her pain. It doesn't feel evil or dark, or even like I should be frightened of it. Just a tall dark shadow that feels heavy with energy, but also comforting at the same time. It's hard to explain. Once I took her to the vet and she had passed, I didn't see it anymore. I would like to think it's just the guide to bring the soul to the destination it's supposed to go to and nothing more. There are more comments to this post, all intriguing. The link is in the description below. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. What did OP's dad encounter? Was it a Grim Reaper? So yesterday me, 28 male, and my kids were in my apartment all day. In the morning time after breakfast, I had went to go pee real quick. And while I was in there both of my boys started crying. I came out of the bathroom and asked what was wrong. And they said, I saw something evil in the hallway. I calmed them down, and even though I thought it was weird, I kinda brushed it off. About 12 o'clock it was nap time, and I decided to take one myself, as well. I'd like to note that 80% of the time, I nap during the day, I get sleep paralysis. An hour into napping, I started to wake up when the sleep paralysis hit. Which usually I don't mind, so I kinda just vibed it out, but this is the first time I've had what I think could be a sleep paralysis demon actually whisper words into my ear, and then be very clear. It, if I remember correctly, was I'm going to set all three of you on fire. I shot up instantly, and then realized I wasn't even in the same spot of my couch. That I went to sleep. It spooked me a little, but I mostly got over it until a few hours later. I noticed the sideburns under the ear, that was whispered into are singed. I know this could be a coincidence, but I think I'd remember singeing my own facial hair, but I have no clue how it could have happened. If that wasn't enough, this morning my 2-year-old woke me up screaming around 2 a.m. So I went and got him and let him sleep with me. Every time he'd fall asleep, he'd wake up crying his eyes out again. For a 2-year-old he almost never actually cries. I asked him what was wrong and he said I'm scared dada. I've been pretty uncomfortable all morning from all this. Thoughts? Here are some of the comments from this post. Paranormal Princess commented. Did you just move into this new apartment? I have some tips and tricks that helped me with sleep paralysis. But I'm very concerned, because I haven't dealt with something similar to this. Disenchanted Geek Girl also commented. Not to diminish the probability that there's something evil there, but sleep paralysis could be hereditary. There's a chance that your son is experiencing it too. And it confuses him. Make sure you talk to him about it, so he knows it's normal and that it happens to you too. Did all of this just start recently? Can you think of anything anyway y'all might have gone to trigger this activity? To get rid of the energy, try blessing the house and smudging it with sage. Other suggestions would include having the home blessed by a priest, having a medium visit to tell the energy they are not welcome, and to leave your family alone. You can also communicate this yourself. You don't necessarily need a medium. Best of luck. I Love Music 19 responded to Disenchanted Geek Girl. It's an apartment, you can't do any of those things without management. CS Male 95 commiserated. I've had that same kind of thing happen to me, when I was like 14. But it was just saying my name. Happened 3 times throughout the night, and on the third I swear I could feel the person leaning close to my ear, and say it loud. It was scary, AF. Xylorgos advised. It wouldn't hurt to, at the very least make sure your smoke detectors are up and running, and have fresh batteries. I have no idea what could be happening in your home, but it doesn't sound good. Maybe it's time to call in a professional. Do you practice a religion? Go to someone within your religion. Priest, imam, rabbi, etc. for help. If you don't practice a religion, then find someone like a medium who might be able to help. With your 2 little ones involved, it's better to get help now, and not wait until something else happens. Good luck. Jim Zim Salabim commented. The more you pay attention to it, the more it knows it can manipulate you. Don't talk to it, and don't look for it. And most spirits will leave. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. Did OP experience an evil entity or something more mundane? This was originally posted in r/paranormal, but I found it in r/paranormal encounters. Today, me and 2 other people that live with me, heard a noise. We stood there for a while, trying to figure out what's that noise that we've never heard before. It turned out to be an alarm clock, that had literally never been used. We thought that it could have maybe been accidentally turned on while cleaning, but we use light duster and there had to be used some little strength to actually turn it on. To add to this, we have felt a paranormal energy in the house, for a long time now. Sometimes dogs react to it too. They barked at something above the bed once or twice. They often bark at particular person, in the house. And look behind him or next to him, not directly at him. We have also had missing objects in the house, such as scarf or headphones that we remember bringing into the house. But then they disappeared. We have looked everywhere and deep cleaned the house, and they're nowhere to be found. Any ideas of some more rational explanations here? Have any of you heard of any similar stories and know what could that be? Or are we going crazy? Here's a comment from this post. King's Mars commented. Is the person that dogs tend to look past a housemate of yours? Pets always know what's up, so they might have something attached to them. Or someone in there is just a thief. I'd say you have nothing to worry about though. As long as no one has got hurt or been threatened, attacked. Let me know, in the comments below. What do you think OP's dog was barking at? Hello, new to this page here. But I thought I would share a very interesting encounter I had as a child. I'm not exactly sure what I saw or encountered, as this thing was in my house for many years. And many people have seen it. So what do you think? So my family believes that drugs and alcohol brings around bad spirits. And bad energy in general, even horror movies do according to them. But I was in grade 5 abouts and was around 11 years old. It was just me and my mother home, in my 2-story suburban house. As my stepdad was working nights being home around 6 a.m. Unfortunately, my mother was a heavy drug user. At the time, and during those times the paranormal activity, in the house, always got very active. And at this point, she was in it deep for a couple of weeks. It was around 5 a.m. or so, and I was awake in the downstairs basement, watching TV, on my phone, doing normal stuff. Just hanging out. When all of a sudden I hear my mom come running down the stairs quite quickly. And abruptly stop at the bottom of the staircase. I was like. So even though I was quite frightened, I got up and started walking to the downstairs basement, which is located right across the bottom of the staircase. But as I was walking to the bathroom to her, I passed a wall where we had a huge horizontal mirror. And in the mirror, on the other side of the room, I saw what we call, the man in the grey suit. I've never looked at him with my own eyes, it's always been reflections. I just kept walking and acted like I didn't see him at all. He was only in the corner of my eye that time. But he was there. From what I can recall, he is a very tall man, as tall as our ceiling. Which is about 8 feet high. He wears a suit, I guess grey since it's in his name. But I cannot exactly remember, but I do know he wears a suit. From what else I can recall, is that he does not have a face. Or, I have never seen it, at least. No one has, that's ever caught a glimpse of him. From what I can tell he just likes to stand in corners then disappear. He has a very very strong presence, and once you see him, you're immediately filled with fear. Although, I still live in the same house, and my bedroom is right beside that downstairs bathroom, I have not seen him since that encounter. I am not sure if he is a demon or just some sort of entity. What do you think? He is a hot topic in my home. Here are some of the comments from this post. Objective Kangaroo 7 commented. Was it actually your mom who called or to you? Did you go? And tell us more about this man in the grey suit. Xylorgos also commented. This story feels incomplete. Was it your mom who called to you? Why did she want you to go into the bathroom? Has this spirit entity been seen in that bathroom? Was there more to your interaction with this, besides just seeing it out of the corner of your eye? Dangerous Disco replied to Xylorgos. I thought he was going to say he found his mom ODing in the bathroom, and saved her life or something. OP responded to Dangerous Disco. Sorry. Yes, it was my mother who called me to the bathroom. And yes, I did go. She later told me that the reason she called me to the bathroom was because there were 3 very large crows on our back deck, banging into the window screen. As the window was open, at the time. And since she was on drugs it freaked her out. And she said she thought it was the devil disguised as a crow, trying to get in the house. Which is when she ran downstairs telling me to go with her into the bathroom. In my personal experience, I have not seen the entity in that bathroom before, but my mother claims she has. And for this particular interaction with the entity, just walking past it and seeing it in the corner of my eye, was all that happened. Although I asked my mother, years later when she was clean from drugs, if she remembers that moment between us, and if she saw the man in the grey suit in the corner as well, she said she did see it there too. I have another personal experience with this entity. So let me know if you're interested in seeing that as well. As for what I did after I went with her to the bathroom, we stayed in there for like 45 minutes, while waiting for my stepfather to come home. In there, I just sat on my phone, trying to avoid talking to my mother, afraid that whatever she would say, would freak me out more. I was really nervous sitting in there, considering what I just encountered. Once my stepdad got home, we left the bathroom, and I very hesitantly looked at where I saw the man in the grey suit just a few minutes before, and of course he was gone. But my mom ended up telling my stepdad about what happened. But he blew it off, as he doesn't believe in the paranormal and knew she was on drugs. And I stayed in their room for a couple hours, until I wasn't so scared anymore, and went about my day. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. What do you think OP encountered? Alright guys, I need your help. We've had a lot of weird shit happening lately, and I don't know what to do or think. This is going to be a long one, so buckle up. A couple months ago, I was in my attic getting some stuff down. Now it's only a hole in the ceiling, and I just stand on a ladder and poke my top half through to get the stuff. I was up there for a minute, organizing and making sure everything was labeled correctly, when all of a sudden I felt a hard poke in my shoulder, like a finger poking me. I turned around so fast, and of course no one was there. I instantly got chills and got out of there so quickly. I brushed it off. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago. My husband and I were cleaning up, and talking. And all of a sudden he spazzes out. And it looking all around him. He said he felt a hard poke and a shock. Mind you, I didn't even tell him what happened to me. He works nights and honestly, by the time we talked later the next day, I didn't even think to say something. We both instantly got the chills and I joked about how someone was really trying to get our attention. We went about our night. That same night, I was in our bedroom working. And he was in the living room watching TV. When all of a sudden the lights in the room next to him go completely dim. Like dimmer than we can even put them, before they turn off. This has never happened before, and hasn't happened since. We have cameras so I was able to go back and actually see it happen. He had to physically get up and turn it off. And then on again to get them to go back up. Last Thursday, I was sleeping and had what I think was a lucid nightmare. But I've never experienced this before, so correct me if I'm wrong. But this is how it went. So, I don't know where I was, but my husband and I were in a house. We were in separate rooms. I went to my room, I think to fold laundry or something. He stayed in his room. Then while I was doing whatever and watching TV, a scary scene flashed on the TV. And it scared me so bad I like fainted or something. And had like dark spots in my vision. Like I couldn't see clearly, and felt dizzy. Which I actually felt in real life. It was the craziest feeling. Then I had to try and make my way to my husband's room, while not being able to see. Because there were big black spots in my vision and I was falling all over the place. I open his bedroom door and start to say his name, and then fall down face first. And have a seizure. But like I swear to God, I felt it all like I don't know what it feels like to faint, or to have a seizure. But now I feel like I do, and I knew in the back of my head I was dreaming, but I couldn't wake up. And once I did wake up, I couldn't move or talk for a second. I couldn't sleep for the rest of the night. Fast forward to now, almost a week later. I have a 3-year-old. She hasn't been sleeping at all lately. And wakes up and is up for hours fighting with me. Because she doesn't want to sleep. Tonight, I crawled into bed and just got comfy. And I hear my door open. I'm covered in blankets so I can't see her, but I can feel and hear her little footsteps. I want to see how far she's going to try and take this, before I put her back in bed. I feel her hands out, pressure on the mattress next to me. I am trying hard not to giggle. Then she doesn't move for a second. I think it's because she's trying to see if I'll move. But it's long enough, so I turn around to catch her in the act. She's not there. No one is there? I don't know what I felt or heard, but it scared me so badly, I can't sleep. What the heck is going on? Honestly, I just want to sleep. I don't want to be waiting on the next thing. If anyone has any idea what is going on or what I should be doing, please help. Here are some of the comments from this post. The Weird Witch person commented, I'd recommend a cleansing of your entire house, including the small attic space, using sage and rosemary sticks. Also, I'd say buy yourself and your husband a cross necklace or a St. Michael necklace each. The Dismissed chimed in. At the moment that these things are happening, are you checking the cameras to see if it captured something around either of you? For example, did you check the camera to see what opened your door the night you thought it was your little girl come into your room? Infinite Sky 626 also commented, wow, this all sounds really unnerving. How long have you lived in this home? What is the background of your home? What has changed recently as well? If you have lived in the home for a bit with no activity, I'm curious if anything dramatic or emotional has been going on to trigger something suddenly. Just starting with background to get a better sense of the environment and home. Let me know, in the comments below. What do you think OP and their husband encountered? Was it a child ghost or something more sinister? I moved into this apartment in 2019. I believe the building was built in the early 1900s and was a single large home. That was divided into 3 separate apartments. I live upstairs. I tried to check the property records in my municipality, but strangely enough, my address doesn't exist. Property records literally go from 117, 119, 120, and I live at 118. Things that I have experienced since we moved in. I have woken up in the morning on 2 occasions, to all the upper kitchen cabinet doors being open. The potted herbs I keep on the windowsill fall to the ground. All the damn time. Yes, when the window is closed. They're double pane glass windows, so it's not a breeze. The door to my bedroom will randomly close. These things I used to attribute to George, who was the previous tenant, and I assumed he passed away. Long story, but telltale signs of when I was shown the apartment. His belongings and pictures were still here, he was a World War II vet. Lately, the occurrences have been getting more aggressive. Not sure if that's the best word to use. Instead of things just falling, as if a small push. I'm hearing things in the room I use for storage, sounding like they're being thrown. I've found my daughter's shoes in the middle of the floor. The storage is mostly her things. The light in my bedroom continues to flicker, dim, go out. 2 or 3 days ago, I was watching TV, and heard the sound of glass shattering. I went into the kitchen and it looked as if someone took something heavy to 2 drinking glasses that were on the drain board. Glass was everywhere. They were both shattered. Now, I'm thinking that it's not George. Just letting me know that he's still around, but rather something ominous. Ideas? Thoughts? Suggestions? Here are some of the comments from this post. Few Setting 1503 commented, my grandfather was a degree theologist and a pastor. He once told us kids to never acknowledge an evil presence, because that would be a signal that allowed it in. The one time things got out of hand for me was when I set up an audio recorder overnight and caught a very obvious EVP. I continued recording overnight, and it just got worse and more frequent. Eventually, became the stick on my blinds suddenly swinging and a small, locked door in my desk constantly moving. Like a child trying to open it. Eventually, I erased the recordings, stopped doing further recordings, and simply ignored everything. And over time it just stopped. The Weird Witch person also commented, buy some sage and rosemary sticks, and perform a cleansing of the whole apartment. Also buy some cheap hamster charms, and hang them around the apartment. You will probably have to perform more than one cleansing. Kiwi Girl 83 chimed in. This is just what I would do. I would ask in local community board for details of a psychic medium that has good reviews. Get in touch with them, and if they can't do it themselves, they should be able to refer you to someone who can help you move this spirit on. Sparkly Unicorn 0512 advised. I would definitely let the entity in the home know that no malevolence or bad energy is not welcome in your home. And if you are religious, then I would consider getting the space cleansed by a religious leader in your community. Ghetto Medic suggested. No, I don't think it is George. I'm not an expert, but I did once, years ago, have a super negative attachment that I couldn't get rid of. Until I got clean and sober. It was so bad that I don't even want to think about it, much less write the story out. Maybe one day I will, though, I don't know. I think, if I were you, I would stop acknowledging it and/or talking to it. I would try to stay positive and pray to my higher power and Saint Michael the Archangel. I would do a textbook sage cleansing, and I would consider calling in a priest or a shaman. I would also play hymns on loop, with the volume up. Round the clock. Just sent up a prayer for you. Best wishes. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. What do you think OP encountered? Was it George voicing his opinion, or a more sinister entity? I think some of you may appreciate my experience. It happened a couple years ago, and it has stayed with me ever since. My girlfriend, at the time, and I were visiting her stepdad and mother, who lived just a few hours away from my city, in Tatamagouche, NS. I remember I was standing in the kitchen, and in the corner of my eye I swear I saw what appeared to be a black figure. Like a dog, moving near my feet. Thinking it was their dog, I spun around to look, but no dog was there. Their dog was quietly snoozing on a chair, in the living room. Was the dog just out in the kitchen, dude? I asked her stepfather. Nope, she'd been sleeping for the past 30 minutes or so. I was utterly puzzled, and I swear I must have hallucinated something. Confused, I simply decided to dismiss the encounter as me being tired from the drive down to their place. Later that evening, I decided to bring it up to her mom. Casually, while we were all gathered around outside. Yeah, it was the weirdest thing. I was just standing there, and in the corner of my eye, I saw a weird black figure of some kind, near my feet. See? I effing told you I wasn't lying. I effing told you there were shadows. She said, playfully smacking her husband on the arm. To add on to that, my girlfriend then told me about how there was a certain cupboard that her grandfather used to open, to grab a snack in the middle of the night, while he was still alive. They told me what cupboard it was. I checked it over, and nothing seemed too weird to me about it. We slept in the living room, and after waking up in the middle of the night, I looked around, in the darkness, to find my phone to check the time. As I was fumbling around, in my pockets, I began to get this distinct feeling of being watched. A few seconds had passed and, I shit you not, I heard the sound of that effing cupboard open and close as if somebody had opened it. Took a moment to look for a snack, and then closed it. Nobody else was awake, at that time. The dog was snoozing in a separate bedroom. I immediately shone my phone's flashlight, in the kitchen, and saw nothing. Never had any weird experiences to that degree prior, or since. Let me know, in the comments below. What do you think OP experienced? Was it a ghost or someone messing with OP? We always hear that animals can sense and see what we can't, because of their heightened sensitivity. My retired canine started following something in the room one night that I couldn't see. There is a door to a closet, and it has opened on its own many times. I used numerous filters before I could see a dark shadow moving around, where the walls meet the ceiling, and she's definitely following it. Do you believe that this theory is correct? If so, what experiences have you had with your pet? Here are a couple of comments from this post. Kana215 commented. I absolutely believe in this. I heard an NPR interview with a scientist who was discussing this. Animals can feel, sense electromagnetic energies that humans can't, and they see on a different spectrum that we do. There are plenty of anecdotal stories of people in nature, and just before experiencing something unexplainable, everything gets quiet. Insects, animals, all just silence at once. I don't have personal experience with this, other than when I was watching a friend's kitten. She'd occasionally look around as if tracking something I couldn't see, but she was little and erratic, and crazy. So I just brushed that off as the cat being a weirdo. Jack Shit suggested. Dogs can also hear things that we cannot. Like rodents in the walls. Let me know, in the comments below. What do you think OP's dog experienced? Was it an entity or a rodent? In the morning after my birthday, last Sunday I was asleep. On and off again over the night, upon the hours until it struck 3, when I was in a dream. I awoken to a tap or more so a smack on my window. I opened my eyes and I saw darkness. But my vision was clear and adjusted, I could see the whiteness of my closet door. In the darkness were ink-like splotches and one of them was the silhouette of a human. That crawled from my closed window, over me and my bed to stand at the foot. It moved like an inky shadow, to my side and put its knee on my bed. Next to my own. And I felt its weight and my mattress shift accordingly. Scared I moved my hand to my light switch, and turned on my nightstand lamp. I saw the figure vanish. But not entirely. An outline of sorts remained. Like the shadow of a shadow, and I saw it leap back in shock, as the light came on. Then that too disappeared. And I felt the weight on me gone. This isn't the first time I had encounters of something, in my sleep or at night. Over the years, on rare occasions, something like this happens. I can count about 2-hour occasions over the course of my 25 years. I always shot it up to just my mind playing tricks on me, and my eyes adjusting to the darkness of night. But what I can't explain is the physical feelings of something touching me, or affecting the area around me. Let me know, in the comments below. What do you think OP encountered? Was it an entity or just a normal shadow? I live in Melbourne, Australia, and there used to be a mental asylum called Larundel. Built in 1938, but eventually closed down in 1999. I was told about this place and how haunted it was, with people hearing creepy things. I was keen to check it out. More than 10 years later, I still can't explain what happened in those 3 or so minutes we were there. I'm a long-time reader. First-time poster. This isn't the scariest story, just one of those moments that you can't explain. That leave you feeling unsettled. It was 2011. One night we drummed up this stupid idea. 'Cause we were bored and had nothing to do. So me and 3 mates decided to go check out Larundel, because why not? The asylum, at the time we went, was being prepared to be demolished, renovated, for new apartments. So most of the entrances and windows were boarded up, with wood. The building we parked next to was surrounded by a metal makeshift fence, to keep people or squatters out. And had a security patrolling the grounds. One of my friends was strong enough to lift the metal fence, that wasn't properly attached. Which allowed us to crawl under and get inside the property grounds. It was all fun and games, we were having a good time. The feeling of doing something you're not allowed to, and trying not to get caught. You know the feeling. We were constantly on the lookout for the security officer patrolling, but also trying to look for a doorway inside. When we finally found one, we one by one walked inside. Scared shitless, mind you, we all put our torches on our phones on, and shined the light inside. When you walk in the door, it's a small entrance area that leads into a main room. We walked a little closer to the main room, to get a better look. There were no windows, that we could see. Just a simple room. Mind you, this all happened in 30 seconds, so we didn't get a proper look. In front of us, on our left was a staircase, I think. Leading up, and all the walls were covered in graffiti. We didn't see anything paranormal. It was scary enough just being there. It had only been 10 to 15 seconds of us standing there, when we suddenly heard footsteps approaching. The crunching sound of the gravel grew closer and closer, from behind us outside. We immediately shut off our torches and were left standing there, huddled together, in the darkness. We couldn't see shit. I might as well have had my eyes closed. But they were wide open, expecting something to grab me. We had our backs to the door behind us, waiting for the footsteps to hopefully walk by us. Thinking the security guard must have seen us. As the crunching of the gravel was fast approaching us, we all instinctively held each other's hand, waiting for the security to bust us. We stopped breathing, as the footsteps came to a halt behind us. The sound was unmistakable. The crunching of gravel stopped. We just stood there. The silence was deafening. The darkness swallowed us. Neither of us turning around. It felt like eternity, but we stood there for about 10 seconds, waiting for something. Anything. A sound or someone to say something behind us. Or a torch to shine in on us, from outside. But nothing. It wasn't until one of my friends turned around slowly, and there was no one there. He finally broke the silence and said, "Let's get the F out of here." And we bolted out the door, and back to our car. Neither of us saw the security, as we raced out the door. We got in the car and left, and never went back. Still, 10+ years later, I think about those footsteps and how no one was there, when we turned around. We never heard the footsteps receding, as we stood there in the silent darkness. Even if it was a weird prank, and someone was there, we would have heard the footsteps running away. It was so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. It just stopped directly behind us. It's something I'll never be able to explain. Unless it is explainable, and I'm just being dramatic. We all remember it exactly the same way. I wrestled with the memory, for a while, thinking I was misremembering, but after checking with my mates again, after so long, we all heard those footsteps behind us. There's no doubt about it. Chalking it down to scary unexplained moments, that could have gone differently if we stayed to investigate. But the whole experience was eerie, and unsettling from the moment we shut our torches off. And were left standing there, in complete darkness. In the comments below, let me know what you think OP experienced. Was it a ghost or someone else? Alright guys, I need your help. I want to start out by saying, I'm very susceptible to the afterlife. It doesn't scare me, and I've experienced different encounters my entire life. Specifically with my relatives, though, they always visit me when I'm sleeping. Or so I think. My grandparents, my aunt, past kitties, etc. And I'm always pretty sure it's just them checking in, and seeing how I'm doing. My uncle passed away about 3 months ago. It was a terrible and unexpected death, and no one got to say their goodbyes. I was never close with my uncle, but after his passing I thought maybe he was trying to show me signs. He was a huge fan of the state college, where I'm from, and would tailgate at every home game, every year. Where I'm living currently, is not the state I'm from, and seeing my hometown state college on sweatshirts or baseball caps, or bumper stickers would be very uncommon. But weeks following his passing, I would see the school name everywhere. I even saw it on the same Audi he used to drive once. So crazy. It never freaked me out, but I saw it as a sign. Over the past few nights, I've been dreaming about him. But the odd part is that he's in the dream, but he never says anything. A few nights ago, I dreamt that him and my aunt, and my cousin were eating at the restaurant I used to work at. And it was one of those server nightmares where I was so busy and couldn't keep up. But I would see him, at the corner of my eye, and he was just at the table staring at me. Last night, I dreamt I was at a memorial service for his passing, and I was sitting next to my mom, but on the other side he was there. At one point, he had his arm around me, and I was so confused. Because I would tap my mom and say, "Look, it's Uncle M, he's sitting right next to me." And she would look at me funny, but then I looked back over, and he was still there. Again, he wouldn't say anything to me, just look at me and have his arm around me. I think that's most confusing, is that when my aunt or grandparents visit me, in my dreams they're always asking me how I'm doing, and we have conversations. But with my uncle, he just stares at me, and doesn't say anything. I wonder what that means. Do you think it's really him trying to reach out, but maybe he's stuck in purgatory and therefore can't talk to me? I need your help, Reddit. Here are some of the comments from this post. GullibleWind7049 commented. So something I've seen often. When someone is looking and hoping for a sign, from someone who's recently passed on, is that too often nearly everything becomes a sign. Also, you said that your uncle passed unexpectedly. It's been said that when that is the case, that they basically need a moment to come to terms with that event. Not only that, But if there are family members or friends that passed before them, they usually are around them for a while. So he might not be saying anything to you, because at the moment, he has nothing to say. So perhaps give it time. OP responded to Gullible Wind 7049. I completely agree with the whole, looking for a sign. And being more hypersensitive when something is constantly on your mind. It's unusual, because I was really hoping after his passing, he would reach to me somehow. So that I can give my aunt and my dad some comfort. But that never happened, and I guess I wasn't shocked. Since my uncle and I were never close. So after several months went by, and I stopped searching, I had 2 dreams about him right off the bat. And the second dream was when I really started to think maybe it was him. I sure hope so. The afterlife is so unknown. Thanks for your response. Gullible Wind 7049 responded to OP. If he was closer with your aunt and dad, he might very well visit them. Or give them signs instead. Whether they notice said signs, as being that is another thing. Pale World Lines 2863 also commented. Maybe you are just fixated on the same topic, and it is looping in your brain. Do you have any hobbies? Could it be that you are over-analyzing it? In the comments below, let me know what you think OP encountered. Was it their uncle or another entity in their dreams? Fake names for privacy. Over the summer, I was at a country club with a friend, A, their sibling, B, and their friend, C, for a couple of days. The club had a clubhouse with a pool table. For context, before this trip I had never played pool, and A was terrible at it. Whereas B and C were both experienced and reasonably good. A and I managed to beat them, and we made jokes about how the universe was on our side. A and I kept practicing, and sometimes the lights would blink, and we started making jokes about there being a ghost. In a few games with A, B, and C, pool balls went missing, in the pockets on the side for a game. And then after the next one, they were in all the pockets. We checked every time and they weren't there, until the next game. A and I kept doing pretty good, and we made more jokes about the ghost. I said they loved the ghost and the light above the table blinked. We would joke blow kisses at the ghost and say we loved it. One night, I made a joke that I was gonna bring the ghost an offering of ramen and cookies. And then, A and I left. Between the clubhouse and where we were staying, was about a half-a-mile walk, and it was night, at this point. I said we should name the ghost and A said, no we shouldn't. At that exact moment, either a squirrel or a small raccoon, or some sort of rodent-like creature, jumped out of the foliage to the side of us, and jumped at A's leg. I didn't get a good look at it, because I wasn't pointing my phone light there. And all I saw were Nail's claws. We screamed and ran back, and then returned with the ramen and cookies, and left them there. We didn't have another experience. B and C didn't have any experiences when we weren't there. We were listening to the song, Sultans of Swin, when we were walking home. I believe the club may have been a plantation, at one point. And I know it has some Civil War connections, USA. I didn't believe in the paranormal before this, and I'm still not sure if I do, but this was weird. B and C could have hidden the pool balls, but they couldn't have changed the lights or the animal. TLDR. Was at country club, that has a Civil War history. Doing suspiciously good at pool, weird pool table, animal jumped out at friend's leg. Told potential ghost we loved it, tried to name it, gave it offerings of cookies and ramen. Here are a couple of the comments from this post. Aloof Dude commented. The more you acknowledge these types of energy, the more power you give it. Notice how the occurrence kept getting more and more intense, the more you acknowledge it. This is never a good idea. Because, well, you don't necessarily know what kind of entity you are engaging with. All they have is time, and they can be very clever. They can come to you in the form of a sweet old lady or little girl. This is meant for you to put your guard down, and continue to acknowledge its presence and abilities. Entities like this need permission to engage with you or follow you. Fully welcoming, accepting or challenging these types of energies, can lead it to not leaving or worse, attaching itself to you. Zylorgos responded to Aloof Dude. I agree with what you said here. You didn't know who or what you were engaging with, and just like with living people, not everyone you meet is nice. Having something attached to you is not a good thing. It can take years to get rid of something unwanted. So you need to be cautious. Let me know what you think OP and their party experienced. Was it a ghost or something more prankster? For the record, I've never believed in ghosts. And I always assumed there were rational explanations for so-called paranormal phenomena. However, recent events have forced me to rethink my position. And if there are natural, or non-paranormal, explanations for these events, I'd like to know what they are. Every night for the past month, I've woken up around 3 o'clock to something unusual. Often, I wake up to a translucent figure floating past me. It's a figure of a demi-man, only his head and torso are visible. He wears a cowboy hat and a tattered vest, but has no legs or feet. He roams from my bedroom, down the hall, and sometimes flushes a toilet before vanishing into the darkness. Then, this past week, my home has been bursting with new energy. And I can't shake the feeling that new guests have arrived. Almost every night, my dogs have woken me up, barking in the kitchen. I arrive to find them making their way around the kitchen table, hopping from one empty chair to the next, and wagging their tails as though someone is sitting in each chair petting them. But last night, I woke up to a cold chill against my face. It felt like someone opened a freezer door 2 inches away from me. It was that cold. I woke up shivering, but when I sat up in bed, nothing was there. Just as I started to go back to sleep, my closet door slammed shut. I flipped my lamp on, and my hands were shaking like crazy. I was freaking out. It took almost an hour to fall back asleep. But at some point, my dream turned into a lucid dream. Then a night terror. In the dream, my surroundings looked true to life. I saw my furniture, my clothes, and even my body sleeping in the bed. Then, a dark figure caught my eye. A brunette woman wearing a blue nightgown appeared at the foot of my bed. She stood there watching me. I started to run, but realized I couldn't move. I was frozen in place, watching her watching me. I couldn't scream, couldn't yelp, couldn't lift a finger. Then, the woman flashed her teeth, revealing animal-like fangs. Like something from a horror movie. I panicked, then commanded my muscles to move, but nothing budged. The woman inched closer, creeping in slow motion toward me. Somehow, I managed to open my mouth and wiggle my hand. Then, I snapped awake and my heart was racing. I haven't been able to sleep since. What does this sound like to you? And who do you call for help? Here are a couple of comments from this post. HorrorGal82 commented. Eek. The last part almost sounds like sleep paralysis, but I don't know. Hopefully someone with more experience and knowledge will comment and can help you. I'm sorry, you are dealing with all this. Paranormal Princess also commented. I've experienced sleep paralysis and I've also seen paranormal entities. Sounds like it could be both. I've experienced something kind of like your situation. I've been visited by, who I believe to be an old hag. In the form of a first pretty woman, then a dead woman who tries to suck the soul out of me, literally. Her apprentice guards the doorway. He is all black with black long nails claws. I woke up at 3 a.m. on the dot. Both my arms were numb, and I was gasping for air. I fell asleep with my psychic developmental spell necklace on by accident, so the veil was lifted. Big mistake. I sprayed Florida water in my room. All corners, doorway too, and said a blessing, kept all the windows open in each room I sprayed it in. I haven't seen her or her apprentice since. Though I'm not sure if that's who it is, I don't think it could. For you to try what I did. Florida water can be ordered on Etsy, or bought at jungle gyms. I'm sure you can find it elsewhere, as well. Not too pricey. I'm sorry I don't have much more to offer. Good luck. The remaining comments are recommendations. Link is in the description below. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. What do you think OP encountered? I also posted this on the Paranormal sub, but thought y'all might get a kick out of it, too. There is at least one resident ghost where I work, music venue, nightclub. I don't know if anybody who works there knows who it is. There have been lots of people with strong emotional attachments to the place. I had been working there for a few days, when I mentioned seeing a ghost that kept making me jump. Thinking someone had wandered in during cleaning hours, which does occasionally happen. The rest of the staff immediately confirmed there is a ghost, everyone sees him. Some people quit suddenly, and I don't know if it's because they were unsettled by him. Every encounter I've had has been non-threatening. It started out catching glances from across the room. Then I started seeing shadows pass across doorways, when I knew nobody was in the room. There was a day when the door of the bathroom I was cleaning opened, and I saw a person out there. I thought it was a co-worker, then when I stepped out realized she was on the other side of the building. A few days later, I came out of the same bathroom after cleaning. And he was standing right on the other side of the door. I expected to run smack into someone, but just passed right through him. It was warm, and he vanished. Maybe a month ago, I was in a room alone. And he gave my ass a good squeeze and tickle. It's been a long time since I've been touched by an entity. And this is the first time one has goosed me. I wasn't scared or offended. I thought it was hilarious, and the second I got home, I told my husband. The ghost is getting really familiar. He asked, "Did he goose you?" Joking around, and we had a good laugh when I confirmed it. A week or so ago, me and a couple co-workers, one female, and a male manager were chatting. And the subject got onto the ghost. The female co-worker said she'd been felt up, and another female had told her she's had her back touched, and shirt, edit. Bra strap. I talked to her about it a couple days ago, gently tugged on, in a teasing way. I told them about the ass grab. The look on the manager's face was priceless. He's had plenty of first-hand experience with the ghost, and had no reason not to believe us. It was clearly the first time anybody had brought it up, and he had no idea how he was supposed to handle it. Not like he can take the ghost into his office, and give it a stern talking to about sexual harassment in the workplace. We assured him that we didn't actually mind the ghost touching us, and feel he's a very friendly entity. Who just gets a bit frisky sometimes. Let me know, in the comments below. What do you think OP encountered? Is the ghost just a bit handsy, or setting OP up for something more sinister? To set the scene. I was living with my mother, as well as two brothers, ages 12 and 15, me being the youngest, 8 turning 9. And I live in Australia, where there is a belief that if you mistreat children, they will be visited, and sometimes taken, by the Featherfoot. Okay. So I was young, and I don't really remember much from that time. Because, unfortunately, I have repressed a lot of memories. We had no father around, and mum was always either intoxicated or UTI. So she always had lots of guys coming over to visit, at any hour. On this particular day, I don't remember many details. All I know is that my grandmother and grandfather dropped me off at mum's house, after going ice skating. I was sore from falling over a lot, and exhausted from the trip. So I walk inside my front glass sliding door, into the lounge where I announce my arrival to no response. I shrug my shoulders and lay down on the couch, with my chocolate milk, and basically pass right out after turning the TV on. I wake up almost as if I was struck by lightning, because I'm like sitting up before I realize I'm awake. Heart pounding and drenched in sweat. I take a few breaths, and feel like I've been running for the whole time I was sleeping. I rub my eyes and can hear my TV playing. The Men in Black theme song. I remember giggling at the weird worm aliens, in the video. I can't remember the time, all I know is that it was dusk and the sun was just finishing its descent. I watched for a little while longer, then I stood and started turning to go to the kitchen, when I was stood frozen. Standing around 5 feet behind the glass door, looking right into my eyes. There was an almost 7-foot figure standing in my front yard. Not moving an inch, still staring right in my eyes. I yell, "Mum's not here right now, so F off." Thinking, or hoping, maybe it was one of her friends. I felt cold and shivers ran up my spine as a car drove down the street, lighting up the humanoid. I could see he had wings like an angel's. 4 of them shining reflecting the light of the car, and was covered in pitch black feathers. It was at this point my heart sank. I fell to my knees and just started bawling my eyes out. I cried for what felt like hours, wiping the tears from each eye separately. Never taking my eyes off it, until it was swallowed by the dark of night. Sliding back until I was flush against the wall, I just sat there staring at the darkness behind the glass door, until my family came back. After turning on the lights, of course. Now that I think back on it, I don't know why I started crying. Inside I just felt a sadness so heartbreaking I can't even explain it. I've never seen it again. Also, it is the only paranormal experience I've had. Let me know, in the comments below. What do you think was looking in the window at OP? I live close to a lake. For reference, I'm about 10 to 15 minutes away from town. I stay with my mom and dad because of health issues. I also live in Illinois. This plays into effect of what I'm going to tell. A little backstory. My parents, since they moved here, have found footprints as in no shoes, big footprints in the snow and mud. Weird noises, as well. I moved back home, with them after they had been here a year. The first night I was back, I walked with my mom to the chicken coop to get some eggs with her, and we both heard knocking and weird noises from the woods. The woods are about 200 feet from the coop, and the coop about 200 feet from our house. About 2 weeks after I got here, the first snow hit and I went to get the eggs with my dog, a Shiba Inu. I had her on a leash, and she kept looking into the woods and growling. Mind you, she never growls or anything. She's an all-around sweet and goofy dog. Well, once I got to the coop, I found about 5 footprints in the snow. All barefoot and was too big to be any one of my family's, as well as a broken egg on the ground, outside of the coop. About 2 months later, we found that even though all 10 chickens were laying, there would only be about 4 to 6 eggs a day. This is still going on. We now have 14 chickens and will only have 5 to 8 eggs now. Back to what's been happening. About a year later, about the beginning of October of last year, I was sitting out on the gazebo. It was about 6 o'clock at night, dark out, and I was reading a book on my phone, enjoying the weather. On that side of my house, there's a horse pen. And right behind the house is a vast field, with cows. As well as the garden, with a tree beside it. I heard some noise close to the garden and horse pen. So I closed my phone, and looked up. I noticed the horse was not out, nor were the cows, but behind tree. Which isn't that thick, there was something peeking out from behind it. Me, not thinking, called out thinking my dad was trying to prank me. I was very wrong, so very wrong. A big humanoid type creature, covered in fur took off running to the cow field. Jumped the electric fence. I could hear the steps it made and the jump. The electric fence is over 4.5 feet tall, mind you. So I couldn't even think of anyone who could jump it. I ran inside and told my dad something run into the cow field. We both went out with flashlights, since the cow field didn't have any lights near it. And to the side of that cow field, is the woods closest to the chicken coop. We saw nothing for a while after this. Now April, of this year, we put up a big fence, in the backyard for my dog and my parents' dog to go out. And for us to not worry about any raccoons or coyotes trying to get them. About mid-April my dog needed to go to the potty outside, it was dark already and at the time, the back floodlight wasn't working. So I grabbed my big flashlight and checked to make sure no skunks were out close to the yard. I was shining it around and saw a yellow eye shine, but it wasn't a small one. It was big and at least 7 feet off the ground, close to the chicken coop. My dog started growling and trying to get outside. I slammed the door, and went inside. Then in May, we were puppy sitting for a friend, for a few days at our house. It was about 3 a.m. and the puppy needed to go out, so I did what I always do. Even with the floodlight, that turns on for movement. I use my flashlight to check for eye shine. I see over by the wood, the same eyes and this time the moon was full and out. I could see the fur a slight red-brown again, and he was looking straight at me. I ran inside with the puppy, in my arms still. The next day, around sunset, my mom took my dog, hers, and the puppy into the backyard to use the bathroom. And my mom looks over to the same area, and thinks it's a cow that's out by the fence. And doesn't even think till she looked again, and lets out a "What in the world?" I was in the garage, getting a dog toy for the girls to play with, and I came out. And I look over, the sun is still out. And this thing is in the front of the tree, about 30 feet from the end of the fence, kinda hiding by the brush pile, just staring at us. We quickly grabbed the girls, and booked it inside, having my dad go out to see what it was. This thing, the time I got a good look at it, had a flat face standing on 2 legs, reddish-brown fur, over 7 feet tall. It scared me with how close it was, and the fact it was there, and we didn't notice it. For the past 3 nights though, I've heard knocking and this inhuman screaming, at around 3 AM. I've seen the floodlight, by the coop, also on and see something hiding behind the coop. I'm beyond scared, the screams are so close. It sounds like it's outside my window, on the 2nd floor of my house. I don't know what it is, but I needed to get this out there. Maybe you could help. I've heard of Bigfoot in the area, but I don't think one would stalk my house. I'm not a skeptic at all, but this is one of the first time something like a supernatural creature has shown up. You may not believe this, but this is happening to my house. I plan to put a trail camera out soon. I'll update, if something happens. In the comments below, let me know what you think about OP's encounter. What do you think is stalking OP's house and eating their eggs? This is my first post, so bear with me. Let me begin with some background info. My boyfriend, best friend, and I are from a tiny town in Pennsylvania. We were invited to spend a week with our best friend's grandparents in Michigan, who live in the forest. There are trails that stretch for miles, and a giant lake in the middle of it, where we have only seen swans chilling in. The biggest problem in these forests are ticks. Right, we arrive in Michigan on Saturday. Today is Thursday, and last night, Wednesday night, around 1 AM, my boyfriend, Zed, and best friend, B, and I, were smoking a joint in front of the forest, near the trail entrance. We wanted to stargaze and watch deer, plus we weren't allowed to smoke on B's grandparents' property. During the beginning of us setting up, the wind was blowing against our backs, as we faced the forest. We were joking around, trying to smoke while shivering, and just having a nice conversation while standing around. We stood in a diagonal line, and heard rustling. I jokingly said, "What if it's a skinwalker?" Our senses were heightened, because we didn't want B's grandparents to know we left in the middle of the night. They're old and old-fashioned, so when they don't know we're home or not, they will spam B's phone asking where he is. After B checked his phone over 10 times, him and I heard a female voice in the distance, directly where their house was. We were about 200 feet away from the property. B heard his grandmother's voice clearly. Very clearly, calling out our names in order. B, M, Z. Come inside? This was unusual, because before we left the house, all the lights were off and they were asleep, by that time. We made sure. After the voice cut off, we heard more very loud rustling in the woods, right in front of us. Like 10 feet. And it sounded like heavy footsteps trampling through the brush. We were silent for a couple minutes, listening to the sounds of the dead leaves being crunched, and it sounded like someone was trying to watch us through the trees. It was louder than what a deer would make, or a bear. There was no noises, growling, or anything. Just the instance of something large walking around. The wind also did a 180 change of direction. It was now blowing against the front of us, instead of our backs. B immediately turned his phone flashlight on and yelled, "Hey!" about 3 times. During the yelling and pauses, the footsteps quickened and seemed hesitant to leave the area in front of us. It sounded like 2 feet, not 4 like an animal, and it started to run towards the lake. Before this, I should mention that the sounds of the swans honking were nice and peaceful. Then, when the entity or whatever it was began to run away scared, the swans were shouting and yelling. They were absolutely going crazy. The lake was far from us, and the water level had fallen. Bushes and random trees were in the way, before you could reach the water. But when the entity ran towards it, we heard the splashing as if it was right next to us. It was that loud. So loud, we could hear each trudge through the water individually. Our fight or flight kicked in, and we all kept our flashlights on towards the forest. I checked behind us, opened all the car doors, so we could dart in, if needed. And kept talking at a loud volume to keep whatever it was away. Once they were in the water, the swans were screaming and seemed to leave. The sounds of trudging through water died quickly, and everything was silent again. We left immediately and went home. All of us were quiet and tired. It was like we didn't even get the affective THC because of how scared we felt. What the F was that? Here are some of the comments from this post. Alternative Cell 668 commented. I also live in Michigan, and most likely it was a W. They're known to be in the Michigan woods. OP responded to Alternative Cell 668. I'm pretty sure it was stalking us again last night. Just got informed by my boyfriend that I was talking in my sleep. I kept saying, I want to go home. I just want to see what they do. He's by the bathroom door. And I've never mumbled clear words before in my sleep. I am naturally a very spiritual person. I can connect with different types of spirits and entities, so I'm just a ball of confusion right now. This is Mockingjay 2020 responded to Alternative Cell 668. What? Yikes. I've spent time in the woods, at night in Michigan. I guess it's good that my spouse isn't outdoorsy like my ex was. Alternative Cell 668 responded to This is Mockingjay 2020. They can be located wherever it's cold, but New England, Canada, Michigan. Pretty much any state with a really cold winter, they can be there. I'm not saying that's for sure what it was, I'm just saying they're known to be here in Michigan. Frog2 also commented. Definitely a skinwalker. Wendigos more focus on getting inside someone's head. To drive them either insane or into cannibalism, so probably not that. Skinwalkers on the other hand, do exactly what you just described. I've had one encounter, very brief, and I was young and didn't know what it was at the time. And ironically it was in a haunted Michigan forest, but anyways it tried leading me away from the group I was in, calling my name in my mother's voice saying, Emily, come here. I have a surprise for you. 11-year-old me was smart and knew mom was at work and didn't follow it. Skinwalkers try to mimic something or someone you have interest or find comfort in, which is typically why they hide as crying babies, pets, animals, or someone you know. They lure you and then attack, once they've got you where they want you. You did the right thing. Also, if something similar happens again, their weakness is fire, so maybe use your lighter, or if you have a bonfire or something. That typically scares them off. OP responded to Frog2. Thanks a bunch for being super helpful. So sorry you went through that. I'm also glad 11-year-old you was smart. We are leaving Sunday morning, and heading back to Pennsylvania. I'm gonna cleanse myself with some crystals. Crazy pure Michigan experience. Frog2 responded to OP. Hey, no problem. And it's fine, that was a while ago. I'm also really sorry you had to go through that, as well. Also, that's a good idea, to cleanse yourself too. I hope that didn't ruin all of Michigan for you though. Because there are some really pretty parts without demonic beings. Let me know, in the comments below. What do you think OP experienced? Was it a Wendigo, Skinwalker, Bigfoot, or something a little more mundane? This happened last night, it's been taken down thrice. And the weird things are still happening. Please help. Okay, I, female 16, 17 in a couple weeks, need some help. Anybody out there that knows what could have done this? It's 8:30 p.m. in the northern United States and it's very dark out. I heard a strange noise coming from outside, because my window was open. It sounded like a baby crying, but my mom, female 49, described it as somebody groaning, but it didn't sound quite right. It was almost like Uncanny Valley, but audio. When I went downstairs, to ask who made that noise, my mom and brother were standing outside on the deck. Door wide open, looking terrified. My brother, male 10, went back inside and I went outside with my mom, to watch my dog. She looked really scared, shaking, leg up, tail between her legs. Staring directly across the street. She didn't move for 7 minutes, just staring. After the initial noise, somebody shouted, "Shut up." And that's when we knew it wasn't just us. Suddenly, a bunch of dogs started barking, but then abruptly stopped after a couple minutes. Then, as if something was trying to fit in, a dog started barking. 3 barks. It sounded like a dog, but also didn't. It sounded very obviously imitated, and it also sounded like it was coming from just across the fence, but nothing was there. We all went inside, and started locking every door and every window. closing all the blinds. My mom told us she was gonna protect us no matter what. My brother is sleeping with my dad tonight. I am sleeping with my window closed and locked tonight. Can somebody please tell me what they think it could be, so I could do some research? I need to know what I'm up against. Thank you for reading. And please, do not take this story as a joke or a ruse. This just happened and my family and I are very worried. I have psychosis, and seeing that my family is also scared and heard everything, shows me that I'm not crazy. Please help. Here are a few comments from this post. Xylorgos commented. Could it be local wildlife, like raccoons? The first time I ever heard raccoons mating, it scared the hell out of me. I thought it sounded like a Tasmanian devil in a fit of rage. I've heard that sometimes foxes sound like a woman screaming, and coyotes and mountain lions make weird noises too. Depending on where you live, in Northern America, you could have a new family of critters in your neighborhood that you haven't heard before. More and more animals that typically live in the woods, away from humans, find themselves somewhere in the burbs looking for a new home. I would check into that sort of thing first. OP responded to Xylorgos. The wildlife in my neighborhood is squirrels, but other strange things happened today that just made things worse. Alpha Wolf 822 responded to OP. What do you mean, made it worse? Slexile 639 suggested. Please keep me updated. Sounds very Skinwalker-ish. OP responded to Alexile 639. Will do, that was my first thought. Comprehensive Emu 972 responded to OP. That's what I thought too, after I read your initial post. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. Will keep you all in my prayers. Ananda Priestess Love advised. I would combine blessed salt, black pepper, and rue or iron filings together with prayers. Then sprinkle a bit over your back door, all windows, front door, etc. As you sprinkle, pray for protection. That will keep a lot out. Also, highly advise you get some good cameras. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. What do you think OP encountered? Was it a skinwalker, or a known animal? The other night, while driving home from my mother-in-law's house, we were passing some open fields. Most of the time, while passing the fields, we try to spot animals. Deer, fox, raccoons, etc. But that night I saw something that scared me so much that my brain went into what I can only describe as shock. It took a full minute or more for me to understand what I saw. My husband, seeing me dazed out, kept asking me what was wrong. What had happened? I couldn't speak. I just looked at him. What I saw was... well, it was a thing. Pale and long. Climbing up the ditch to the field. Its body was twisted and branch-like, but bone-looking. Its head was eyeless, but its mouth was wide open, like it was screaming. I heard no sound, as the windows were up, but it was moving. Crawling. Reaching. My husband wanted to go back and look for it, but I begged him not to. I didn't want to see it again, and the fear it put into me stayed in my mind like a steam stuck in your throat. I've tried to explain this creature to a few people. And the looks or comments are mainly rude or unbelieving. So I've come here for advice, or maybe someone else has seen it. Here are some of the comments from this post. Curious Kitty 999 commented. One of my relatives had seen a similar thing and she called it a twist in a rake. AZ Stargazer questioned. Rake creature. OP responded to AZ Stargazer. I've looked it up, and it may be what I saw, but it was so gnarled and laying how it was. It's hard to say. Maybe it was wounded. Maybe stalking something. Or maybe it didn't want to be seen, so it was crawling. I'm not sure, but I still get chills when I think about it. Mind you, I'm not stranger at all to the paranormal, but that thing scared the hell out of me. Southern Formal 127 also commented. I live in East Tennessee, and I too have seen the same thing you're describing. It's the rake. I live out in the country. So a trip to the good old Dollar General was about a 15-minute ride, one way. Which isn't too bad considering, at the time, I lived out in BFE on 43 acres, that were mostly forest. It's extremely dark at night, on these backcountry roads. No street lights, and you'll maybe see one or two other vehicles traveling also. I was on my way home from the Dollar General, and on speakerphone with my friend. We're chatting away, and as I was approaching a curve in the road, I see this long, lanky, knobbly looking thing streak across the two-lane road in front of me. It was this awful pasty white color, and a black void for a mouth. It was tall, and it was fast. In mid-conversation I yelled, "What the hell was that? OMFG. My friend on the phone is asking me what happened. What did I see?" So I describe it to her and she exclaimed, "OMG, you've just seen a rake." That is a rake. I hadn't heard of one at that time, and when I got home, I immediately do a Google search on this creature and see images people have captured of this thing. Sure enough, it was exactly what I saw. Sounds like you saw one too. OP responded to Southern Formal 127. That's amazing. I'm so glad it's not just me. I live in upstate New York, so apparently they are pretty widespread. It's so nice to know I'm not alone. Southern Formal 127 responded to OP. You're definitely not alone. There's a show called Paranormal Caught on Camera. And they have an episode where other people have encountered these things, and have it recorded. There's many. You should check it out. Plus, there's videos on YouTube showing footage of them. We live in the age of technology, and just about everything is on camera and uploaded to social media. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. Was it a rake or a crawler, or something more mundane? Okay, I posted this several years ago, in another sub. But I think it fits here. I'll try to make it as short as possible. Here's my story. This took place in the early 90s. I was around 10 years old. My father bought several hundred acres near Lucedale, Mississippi, about an hour from Mobile, Alabama, where we lived, in the late 80s. The nearest paved road, from the start of our land, was at least a 20-minute drive, so it was pretty secluded. The nearest neighbor was an old couple in their 70s, about 5 miles west of our land. Shortly after purchasing the land, my dad built a small lake, about a quarter-mile north of our cabin, which he also built. Aside from the clearing, the cabin was on, and the lake, the land was covered in thick woods. You could also get to the lake by a walking trail, which ended at the southeast corner of the lake, where a fishing pier was located. The lake itself was surrounded by woods, and there was a dam on the north end. One October morning, I decided not to go with my parents and little sister into town. I instead wanted to go fishing, while listening to the Bama game on the radio. I had my loyal and unusually large Airedale Terrier with me. I had been fishing, on the little pier, for about 15 minutes when I started feeling very nervous, for whatever reason. The hair on my neck was standing, and I started getting nauseous. I scanned the tree line, on the west side, across from me, and spotted a silhouette in the trees. The lake itself was roughly the size of a football field, so it wasn't that far across, 50 to 70 meters. I thought my eyes were deceiving me, and then the silhouette moved. I was absolutely scared stiff, but was able to keep calm. I could tell that whatever it was, the color was uniform. Dark brown or black, and it was very tall. I casually faced north, but kept my eyes glued to the figure. It slowly moved from tree to tree, almost facing me. It was making its way toward me. My dog started to low growl, and that broke my paralysis. I set my pole down, and started walking up the pier, to the trail. I didn't want to look over my shoulder, for whatever reason, and when I got to the trail, I ran as fast as my legs could carry me, back to the cabin. My dog stayed with me, the entire time. I don't know if it followed. When I got to the cabin, I got my dad's shotgun and waited by the biggest window, eyes glued to the woods. My family returned home, and I didn't tell them. I was afraid they may restrict my explorations, but it didn't matter, because I never felt comfortable there again. We sold the land in the late 90s, and got a beach house in Gulf Shores. I didn't mind. I'll answer any questions y'all may have. Here are a few comments from this post. Oh my gosh, Bigfoot commented. Interesting encounter. And frightening. with numerous reports out there, involving young folks. There's an idea or theory out there that Squatches are especially fascinated with kids. It sure seems that way. Maybe it just wanted to see you more closely, but meant no harm. I wonder if the new owners had any experiences. Gabriel Bathory responded to, "Oh my gosh, Bigfoot. Children are way less likely to be able to injure or kill one. Likely not even try and just run away instead. So either curious ones are trying for a safer close observation of a human, or they have nefarious intent. Hey, look over there. It's a people McNugget." Beyond Hatred responded to, "Oh my gosh, Bigfoot. I wonder if maybe Sasquatch have the same instinct to care for little creatures that humans have. Even if it's not their own species." OP responded to, "Oh my gosh, Bigfoot. Not that I know of." Stupidized Me also commented, "It's interesting that you felt nervous and nauseous before you saw it. If I get a feeling of something ominous, some kind of potential danger near me, I always take it seriously." OP responded to Stupidize Me, "I think the nausea came from my fear." Stupidize Me responded to OP, "I agree. The nausea might have kicked in before you saw anything, because your body's nervous system was already reacting." Armed Squatch chimed in, "We have been hit with an overwhelming sense of dread and loss. Followed by the shakes so bad, fine motor skills were out of the question. Another time, it was bowel-loosening fear that surpassed any firefight. We had been enduring Iraq and Afghanistan. Both times, right before we caught movement, at the next tree line or down a ridge. But close by, 100 meters. Bear with me for a second. My body thinks it's our ancient, hardly ever used lizard brain. That keys up on creatures like a squatch. That have been around for 1,000 years. I'm not sure if it's that or infrasound, but I have no doubt you had a legit encounter. I had a buddy, growing up, that had a monster-sized Airedale compared to normal-sized. That could have been the reason he stayed as far back as he did." OP responded to Armed Squatch, "Yeah, Booley was bigger than a German Shepherd. He used to crush armadillos and leave them on our back porch." Armed Squatch responded to OP, "I would not be surprised if your pup was the deterrent. One night, at our delta spot just at dusk, my Great Dane, Panzer Bluff, charged the woodline, with a growl from the depths of his chest, and all his hair standing straight up. He came back with his tail between his legs, shaking in fear. That night we got the orbs and all kinds of tree breaks, around the campsite. We had set up in a spot that blocked easy access to a creek that had large pools of resting salmon. I think we spoiled what had been a dinner plan, for a group. It was a long night with Panzer keyed up in the tent, and very stressed out. Around 2 a.m., we started getting the owl hoots. That sound like they are from 200-pound owls. And way too low from both sides of our campsite. Long night. The only thing we didn't get was any rocks or pine cones being thrown at our trucks or tents. We spent hours, the next day, looking for footprints and the tree breaks. And found nothing. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. Do you think OP encountered a Bigfoot? Also, do you think OP's dog acted as a deterrent to keep OP safe? I truly believe that the primate exists. And I have actually had an interesting event take place, when I was much younger. Growing up in Wisconsin, I remember hearing stories of the elusive primate. And I always wondered if the stories I heard were real, or was it all Harry and the Hendersons. I was about 10 years old, and was visiting my cousin. In a thick forested area of south-central Wisconsin. It was the dead of winter, and about a foot of snow was on the ground. My cousin and I loved the woods outdoors, and would never miss an opportunity to wander the forests near their property. The state had groomed ATV, snowmobiling trails, we would walk on all year round. That were fairly close to my aunt and uncle's property. On this particular day, we were walking the trails, and came to the road where we always walked back towards the home. We were walking on the oncoming side of the desolate country road, and noticed massive barefoot footprints. I gazed down at the tracks, and could tell immediately that these were similar to human feet, but much bigger in length and width. There was also interesting characteristics that are not found in human footprints. Looking at the tracks, I looked up and watched them trail off into the deep and dense forest. We then walked to the other side, to see if the tracks came across the other side. And sure enough, they did. The terror was unfathomable, as a young kid. And I remember immediately sprinting towards my cousin's home, in our snow pants and heavy winter jackets, about a quarter of a mile from where we were. We never saw whatever it was that made the footprints. Still, to this day, my cousin and I cannot come up with a rational reason on the situation. Other than an elusive bipedal primate that is very intelligent. I will never be convinced, nor will my cousin, that a size 14 to 18 barefoot person was walking around the middle of nowhere in 1 foot of snow. On a freezing cold Wisconsin, 10 to 20 degree, winter day. Here are some of the comments from this post. The Real Blabaloo commented. What in this story implies very intelligent. I believe you found footprints, but what does that have to do with the level of intelligence of whatever left them? OP responded to the Real Blabaloo. I don't say that lightly. I do say the creature is intelligent, by avoiding direct human contact or interference. For centuries, Native American cultures have seen the creature. And there are stories of this creature hunting native children in Northern California. I say the primate is intelligent, because it seems to have the ability and wherewithal to know to avoid humans. Yet hunt humans up until possibly today. The point of hunting humans is passed by generations. I also suggest that there may be a correlation of missing people to the primate. Though I say that as a theory. We consider dolphins, whales, and many other primate species as intelligent. Would it not be intelligent, if a primate is able to avoid capture or being hunted, especially over millennia? The Real Blabaloo responded to OP. In your post, you said we cannot come up with a rational reason for the situation. Finding Bigfoot tracks in the snow. Other than an elusive bipedal primate that is very intelligent. I'm just saying that footprints in the snow don't imply any particular intelligence, and it sounded like you were saying they did. I don't have a problem with the idea of Bigfoots being intelligent. I'm just saying that this isn't evidenced by the event you described. The way you phrased it sounded like you just tacked on, that is very intelligent without justifying it. OP responded to the Real Blabaloo. Correct? As I state, it without a doubt did not belong to any human. Therefore, that leaves one theory for us to fall back on. That is a bipedal primate. Again, this primate would have to be a highly intelligent being to avoid hunting and capture. The capture of this creature would not change humanity or anything. But, to avoid capture or being hunted for millennia would make it an extremely intelligent being. Not sure where the disconnect is. Brad C42 also commented. A manager I worked with said as a kid, he smelled something really nasty. Looked up and saw a giant hairy thing side-hilling above him. He said Bigfoot exists, period. OP responded to Brad C42. I no longer live in Wisconsin, and now am in Washington state. I have lived here for over 20 years now. I am now terrified of the woods, which is something I forgot to mention in my op. I know stories can be just that for someone on the outside reading. But, I actually have a little brother, who experienced something here. While off-roading on the ORV trails, near Mount Rainier. I remember the fear in his eyes, when telling the story to me and just how terrified he was of what he saw. Even as an older brother to him, I sort of look up to him, for how well maintained his adult life has been. The story. They got done off-roading for the day. And set up camp deep in the national forest, on top of a mountain, in the foothills of Rainier. He was getting ready for bed and went off in the woods to take his bedtime leak. And as he finished up, he said he smelled something absolutely foul. He said he then noticed something watching him about 10 feet away, standing near a tree he was using to relieve himself. Whatever it was massive and towered over him, 6'1". He said he didn't hang around to see what it was, and ran back to camp about 20 yards away. Again. My brother is the honest Abe of the family. And never embellishes anything. The true fear and terror of whatever he saw haunts him to this day, and he will no longer go in the woods either. Nature is scary, and I truly do not doubt my brother, nor my own experience. Therefore, there is something bipedal in the woods of North America, that is far bigger than any human. I hope one day science can give my brother some peace of mind, knowing what he saw. Anyhow. That's all I got. I honestly have never heard any other people, who have any encounters. And I really think if you're in the woods as much as we were, the odds are, eventually, you may get lucky. Let me know, in the comments below. What do you think left the prints that OP found? So I got freaked out tonight. I'm at my grandparents' house for Thanksgiving. And me and my mom decided to go on a late night drive, to just mess around and stuff. Go get something to drink and stuff. As she had just woken up, and we get into the car after exiting our house, and it's facing a hill. On that hill, in the brush, I can see something strange. It's a weird, pale white blog-ish looking thing. And it kinda looks like, if something extremely tall was crouched down, as it looked around 4 to 5 feet while in a squatting type position. And I could see it moving lightly, its head, arms, whatever. I tell my mom and she sees it too, and I think nothing of it, as the night goes on. However, as we return into the driveway, what isn't in the same spot? The mystery creature. So obviously me and her start panicking, and we run inside. Any idea of what it could be? West Virginia, United States by the way. Here are a couple comments from this post. Josette22 commented. There's a possibility it could be a crawler. OP responded to Josette22. I didn't even think of that, you could be entirely right. It sucks it was dark outside. Feels like one of those times, where you just can't get a good look at anything. But still had me running into the house, after we got back. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. What do you think OP encountered? Was it a crawler or something else? Okay, so this happened years ago now. Probably like 5 or 6 years ago, if I had to narrow it down. I lived in a very rural area, if anybody is familiar with North Carolina. I lived in Mount Olive, very close to the county line, leaving Wayne County and going into Duplin. This little house is pretty much surrounded by woods and fields. And there were a few other houses, but not many. It was pretty quiet. One night I was in the process of getting my dogs back inside the house. They weren't paying much attention, except for one. But she wasn't making a scene or anything. I noticed something sitting down at the road, just off the edge of the property I lived in. It was small, like it most definitely wasn't tall. It was crouched, almost like it was squatting. I hate how silly it sounds, but the way it was sitting reminded me of Gollum from Lord of the Rings. It was very clearly humanoid. Its skin was so pale, it was white as paper. Its skin looked tight, like there was no loose or saggy skin at all. It wasn't wearing clothes, and it had no hair at all. It didn't have the same intimate areas as a normal person. Like looking at it, you couldn't see what its biological sex was. Its eyes were big, I couldn't see eyeballs or anything. Just large black eyes. It hadn't noticed me, so I turned on the porch light. It looked away from the dogs and looked at me. It freaked me out, so I shined my phone flashlight directly at it. I think it didn't like the light, because the second I shine a flashlight at it, directly into its face, it took off running and I haven't seen it since. Haven't seen anything else like it either. I think it was watching my dogs, and I don't think I wanna know what would have happened had I not gotten them in the house, in time. Does anyone have any ideas of what it could have been? Someone told me, it could have been one of the moon-eyed people, but I don't live in the mountains or near Appalachia. I lived 6 hours away from that part of the state, but even now it's just 4 hours instead of 6. With where I currently live, not knowing what it is has bugged me ever since that night. Moon-eyed people, to my knowledge, wouldn't be in eastern North Carolina. I'm open to any suggestions I could look into and read about. Here are some of the comments from this post. Josette22 commented. I believe what you saw is a crawler, a mimic from the forest. Grey Mares in Space also commented. Go to r/crawler sightings or r/crawlers. It's a relatively newish thing that people are seeing more and more often. Daddy Hojo questioned. Are there any caves nearby? It could be a cave goblin or Tommy Knocker. Let me know, in the comments below. What do you think OP encountered? Was it a crawler, cave goblin, Tommy Knocker, or something more mundane? Me and my girlfriend have been dating for almost 2 years now. We've known each other for the majority of our lives though. She failed to tell me that her great-grandmother was an Indian shaman until a few days ago. And it might correlate with the strange things happening around here. Let me set the scene. We live in the rural outskirts of Dallas, Texas, where the city turns into the heavily wooded country. Around our house, we have a trail park that people like to hike in. But at night there's a sinister feeling of dread that envelops the place. The first actual encounter we had with this creature was a few months ago. I had a full-time job at my local Sonic at the time, and I would get off either at closing or slightly before. But either way it was pitch black when I would walk home. And our road is a mile long, with absolutely no street lights. That night, my girlfriend decided that she was gonna meet me halfway, so I could give her shake and so we could walk and talk. As we met up and started talking, we made our way home. Keep in mind there's a heavily wooded tree line just left of us. We started hearing something matching our pace, in the woods. When we would stop, so would it, and the second we started walking again, so would it. Now I know animal sounds, and those were not no animal. Whatever it was, it walked on 2 feet. My girlfriend doesn't think it wants to hurt us though. It's had so many chances and it just won't. It's even appeared in her dreams. She's seen this thing following us, in those trees and handful of times. It's not just native to the trail park, it's recently relocated to our property, since we don't go to the trail park anymore. I keep hearing these strange calls coming from the woods, beside our house too. It's not quite a bird or a mammal, but instead sounds like a jumble of both. Like a fox eating a screaming bird. The most substantial evidence we've had, was by far the night it came to my girlfriend in her dreams. She cannot remember what it actually looked like, for the life of her. But she's positive it had deer antlers. We're just now piecing it all together, but I'm not quite sure what it actually is, that's stalking us. Because we've tried to summon it, and it responds when we say Skinwalker 3 times, but never tries anything. I've even whistled at night and got chased by it, but just as I thought it was gonna get me, the heavy sprinting footsteps behind me vanished, and I just went home. We're stuck between a Wendigo or a Skinwalker, but regardless it's not hostile. We're moving off of this old property soon. The real test is seeing if it's gonna follow us there. Here are a couple of comments from this post. Timbro2000 commented. Just cause you didn't know everything about her family, doesn't mean she failed you. Your wording gives you away, bro. OP responded to Timbro2000. Yeah, you're right. Should have worded that sentence better. It just would have been very useful to know about it beforehand though. But that's the point of everything that's going on, we're just now piecing it all together. Trying to find out what's living in those woods. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. What do you think OP and his girlfriend encountered? Also, how wise do you think it is that OP attempted to summon the creature? Hello everyone, I'm new to this subreddit, and I was originally gonna post this on Ask Reddit question, but decided to post it here. So, here we go. I was around the age of 14 to 16. I was playing GT online with some friends on the Xbox 360, when all of a sudden my internet cuts out. No big deal, I'll just wait and text my friends what's going on. I look at my phone and it's stuck on the time 1:47 AM. I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to get it off of that screen. I realized my TV and all sound just stopped. Like nothing but me was making sound. I decided to go out into the living room, to see if my stepdad, at the time, was on the couch and see if he was experiencing the same thing. But he was asleep, which kinda scared me more, cause he always snores in his sleep. I didn't even hear him breathing, I kept poking him and asking him to wake up, and nothing. There was a single light on, in the kitchen. I walked over to it, and noticed out of everything, it was the only thing moving. It flickered a few times. I started getting a very bad vibe. But like the idiot I was, I decided to go outside to see if anything else was weird. Everything outside was frozen in place. Animals, insects, cars. It was like I was the only one moving. I looked at the sky, and it was like I could see everything in the sky. I never could see as many stars as before. I noticed one star, it was moving, and it was like it was moving towards me. It just kept getting bigger and bigger, as it came close and still no sound. Fear took over me, and something inside me screamed, "Run inside." In my room, my heart was pounding. I tried turning off my light, but it wouldn't. Everything I tried, it wouldn't turn off. Then, all of a sudden I hear what sounds like a generator go off. And everything is working and back to normal. Me, still freaking out, I look at my phone and immediately start calling my best friend I was playing GTA with, and asked him how long I was gone. He was very confused. He said I was only gone for a few minutes. Freaked out still, I get a knock on my door and my stepdad comes in. "I just had a strange dream, where you were talking to me and telling me to wake up, and poking me. Or was that what you were doing? Are you okay?" I just said, "Yeah, I'm fine," and no, I didn't do that. I was just freaked out. Didn't know what to do, so I just said I'm gonna go to bed. I couldn't sleep, nothing made sense. Couldn't sleep for weeks after that. Never had it happen to me again, though. I don't know what happened or if it was a dream, but it felt so real. And I still remember every little detail from that night. Here are some of the comments from this post. The OAA5501 commented, "This sounds like dissociation. It could be depersonalization. But it seems that derealization fits better. I could say that you were hyperfixated playing the game, you disconnected from reality and then you got up way too fast. When you are about to faint, your perception of time feels altered. Also, this could be a very realistic dream. If your sense of hearing is high. Can you hear the electricity? I'm asking because some people can, including me. When there is a shortage, the complete silence is very, very weird. And it does feel like time stops. Gas leaking also causes hallucinations, and of course, drugs, even something that you took for a headache and your body isn't used to. I tried my best being rational here, explaining the sense of the time stopping. But the light you say, and the person who had the dream, doesn't make sense. Your experience, as a whole, it's strange and yes, you lived something that it's not normal. That can correlate with other experiences of people that saw an UFO driving in a highway. One good thing. You didn't miss time, and people who are abducted do. The person who was sleeping didn't experience it, but maybe just because it was sleeping. So something was near your house, and you felt and saw the collateral consequences of that. The bad thing. Aside your fear, the memory, and the lack of explanation. You experienced something that only few people knows, and you might feel alone. Or crazy, when you share this with others. In the end, yes. It seems that something did happen. I hope that this didn't affect your life or your health. It's frightening, but in this world there are so many things that you can't explain. They just happen, and we need evidence to prove that we are not crazy, but it is what it is. Some people will not believe you, don't take it personal. People don't want to feel afraid. There is a need of safety that gets threatened with the idea of not having control. The good thing is, that you are safe. This didn't involve violence, and you lived something that so much people would like to experience. So in a sense you are very, very lucky. Let me know, in the comments below. What do you think OP experienced? I was a kid, around 9 or so. I was in my bedroom and woke up, in the dead of night. I sat up and saw the TV was playing anime, so it had to have been around 1 to 4 am. Now my bed was in the corner, up on a wall, and I had 2 doors leading toy room. One led to the master bedroom, and the other led to the laundry room. It was open and had Chinese beads dangling down. Well, I looked over and saw a figure just past the beads. It looked like my grandmother, but I couldn't see her face, since it was so dark. I called out to her and nothing. I tried to call out once more, and threw my stuffed bear at her. It hit the beads, but went right through her. I panicked and hid under the covers. I don't remember how much time passed, but I fell asleep. When I woke up, I thought what I saw was a dream, but I looked into the laundry room and saw my stuffed bear. I couldn't sleep for months, alone, after that. Here are a couple of comments from this post. OP commented on their own post. This is not a story, this is a genuine experience I have had in my past home. I was not the only one to experience things in that house. My brother, who is an atheist skeptic, even says something was wrong with that house. He won't even tell me certain things, because it freaked him out so bad. I still have some encounters, in my current home. But they are nowhere near as bad as the things I have seen in my old home. Alfarius01 commented. It followed you. I think you have a demonic problem. It's entity that is not, nor was never human. It can appear humanoid, but that is not its true form. Let me know, in the comments below. What do you think OP encountered? Was it a demon or something more human? Two friends and I were riding four-wheelers, at around 10 one night. We had been riding on an abandoned stock job. We were at a large clearing, where there were 3 pine trees close together in a triangle. Probably about 4 feet apart, and we got the bright idea to build a fire in the middle. One of my friend doesn't believe in paranormal stuff, so he kept whistling to mess with us. My other friend, we'll call him S, and I kept hearing some sort of scream after the other friend, who we will call K, would whistle. He whistled about 15 times and there was a high-pitched screech after every one. He finally got scared, so we decided to leave. On the way back to the main road, there is about a 3/4 mile long stretch of nothing but tall grass, about 4 feet, on both sides of the road. You can see nothing past the tall grass. There was a tall solid white figure, that stood above the grass about 7 feet. There were no limbs, no eyes, nothing. It just hovered beside us all for about 10 seconds. I'd love to know what this figure may have been. I'm fairly sure that was the last time I was up there after dark. It was terrifying. Here's a few comments from this post. The Weird Witch person commented. Interesting, doesn't sound like a skinwalker or anything of that nature. Maybe an angry or interested spirit or something from a different place. OP responded to the Weird Witch person. Possibly an alien. The Weird Witch person responded to OP. Possibly, I honestly do not know. Strange, indeed. In the comments below, what do you think OP and their friends encountered? I am no stranger to the paranormal. I had a few encounters, but this is by far the scariest. It was almost 7:30 p.m. when this happened. I finished my lecture, the second lecture was cancelled, so we left the classroom and everyone left. I walked to the new campus hub building, to pass some time. But as I left the campus hub, there was an alleyway between the campus hub and the humanities building. There was a parking area, it's not big, and curiosity took the best of me. So I passed through that alleyway, and as I entered that small parking area, near the humanities building, I saw something that walked so fast that it's impossible for a person to pass so fast. The brief seconds that I encountered the figure, it did not have a face and it was a shadow figure. When I told my mum, who had many ghostly encounters in her life, when I told her, she believed me. This event really sent a shiver down my spine. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. Do you think OP saw a shadow person or something more mundane? So last summer, me and my dad, his girlfriend, her kids, and me went up to Ohio to see my dad's girlfriend's family. At the times in Ohio, when I had nothing to do, I would go outside to call my friends and have entertained myself. Ask them about how their life was, me telling them how things in Ohio were. When I was in Ohio, we stayed the nights at my dad's girlfriend's uncle's house. They had a decent amount of land on their property, and behind the property was a fairly large forest. This will kinda be important later. So when I would call my friend, I would walk around the field outside, while talking to them. I would always call my friend around the field, and I would do this at anywhere from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. The reason why I would go outside so late just to talk to my friend, was because the walls were thin and I didn't exactly want my family hearing my conversations. So one of these nights, I was calling my friend, outside like usual. We talk for a few hours, and eventually somehow get on the conversation of skinwalkers. My friend just kinda started talking about how much they terrified them. And I started talking about them too. It is at this point, that my friend points out the mistake I have made. That apparently you aren't supposed to mention skinwalkers out loud. And they joke about how it's especially not a good idea, because it is 9 o'clock at night, and I'm right by a forest. I shit you not, 10 minutes later I hear something from the forest. A weird laugh scream that sounds like a combination of a coyote, a laugh, a wolf, and a woman screaming for her life. This noise happens several times, followed immediately after by what sounded like a man screaming from the forest, as well. Yelling something along the lines of, "Hey, hey, come here." Now I know this could easily be explained by something rational, but I find it hard to believe that it's all just a coincidence. So after I hear all that go down, I tell my friend what happened and tell them that I'm going back inside. And noping right the F out of there. So I go inside, and make my way to the basement storage area, because that's the place that that has the least chance of my parents hearing me. Because I still don't want them to hear me, especially if I'm talking about things like skinwalkers. They would probably think I'm crazy. After a while of me and my friends talking, over the phone, downstairs, I start to get this weird feeling of dread wash over me, like really bad. So bad that I decide to go back upstairs. When I get back upstairs, for some reason the feeling subsides. At that point, I don't care if my parents hear me or not, but because I was creeped the F out. Me and said friend began talking again, for a while before we finally hang up, so we can both go to bed. But I had trouble sleeping that night. I know this probably isn't nearly as freaky as some of the other stories on here, but I still hope you enjoyed reading, nonetheless. Here's a few comments from this post. Josette22 commented. Well, since Ohio is not part of the southwestern United States, I don't think it is a skinwalker. I do believe, however, that it is a mimic from the forest. The one I'm most familiar with is the crawler. They mimic animals and human voices, and they do this to try to lure you to where they want you to go. People describe having feelings of dread when they are in the vicinity of these creatures. Which could mean they also emit infrasound. Many people have disappeared in forested areas, and their surrounding areas, never to be seen again. Here is a link to a post I wrote about these creatures. I hope this will be helpful. Extension Piece 9922 responded to Josette22. That post states that the crawler is interdimensional, which would mean it can technically travel wherever it wants, whenever it wants. Which I think is also synonymous with skinwalkers, so I'm not sure location is relevant when it comes to these beings. Extension Piece 9922 commented on this post. I'd have shit my pants, no kidding. I think you're right, but at the same time it could have been anything dark. Like another commenter said, the crawler could be in the lineup for what this could have been. It also could have been a Wendigo. Any of these terrifying things that nobody wants anything to do with. Dark Wolverine 2022 also commented. Definitely sounds like a dark witch of some sort, with the ability to shapeshift. If you heard the laughter and scream of a woman, and then wolf canine sounds, definitely sounds like a female werewolf. Sometimes, you'll hear them screaming because the transformation can be very painful. The snapping and popping of bones, the stretching of the skin. Skinwalkers are shapeshifters as well, but they are specifically Navajo shapeshifters, in Navajo lore. They are definitely in the possibility. But they aren't the only witches who can shapeshift using black magic, just the most popular in America. From my experience and just hearing thousands of encounters, over 2 decades. It sounded like a female dark witch, werewolf. And it sounded like there was a male one, out there too with her. Usually with Lugarus. Skinwalkers? Shapeshifters like wolves. They travel in packs. Usually when there's one, there's another one or more behind. Clans? Covens? Zylorgos chimed in. At first, I thought this just sounded like animal sounds. Maybe the call of a coyote combined with the scream of a fox, but then animals don't tend to speak using human words. I'd stay out of those woods from now on, if I were you. Better to be safe than sorry. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. Have skinwalkers made their way east, or was this something else? This happened less than an hour ago. Me and my friend, driving back from one town in the West Midlands UK, to my hometown. Turned a corner and saw roughly 100 meters down the road a 7 to 8 foot pitch black figure with thick arms and legs, which walked into the road on its back legs. Then went into the hedgerow, on the side of the road. As we went past, I saw from my peripherals that the thing's head was towering over the hedge by at least 2 feet. And I could literally feel that it was looking at me. There is nothing that fits this description in the UK. It was massive and walked on its hind legs. Me and my friend felt a wave of fear, and my friend, who was driving's eyes started to well up. Please help me identify this, or give me any information. This is not a joke or a story. I'm still feeling shaken from this. Here are some of the comments from this post. Shaman Blame commented. Make sure it doesn't follow you. Low Examination 6799 also commented. Being raised a missionary Baptist preacher's kid, you'd think that I've never experienced seeing entities such as your recent one. But I most certainly have. I strongly recommend that you avoid driving in that area, if you can help it. The last thing you need is having a succubus attached to you. That's something that's extremely hard to get rid of. It took me more than half my life to make the incubus that had attached itself to me to leave me alone. I pray that it'll never happen again, but it seems like every time I have a hard time, I start seeing it in my left eye peripheral vision. It's true that it feeds off fear and negativity. Pray for the Lord's strength. The weird witch person questioned. Honestly, I don't know. Could you give a bit more information on the physical appearance of this being? And also how it made you feel? Did you get a sudden feeling of dread, fear, anxiety? Was it pure black? Fur? Eyes? Etc. etc. OP responded to the weird witch person. The thing was 7 to 8 foot tall. A kind of very thick build, but also looked athletic and predatory. It was absolutely pitch black, as if it was consuming the light around it and me. After I saw it, I said, I think I just saw something then. My friend agreed, and we both became unnecessarily scared. Like something had come over us. Bear in mind, we're both like 6'3", he's ex-army and we both gym and train sports. We aren't really scared of a lot, but this really unsettled me. My friend began to tear up and shake. I felt the thing look at me. I saw no eyes, but I felt it look at me. The weird witch person responded to OP. Very interesting. Most definitely isn't some kind of British Bigfoot then. Possibly some kind of paranormal entity. The feeling of becoming unnecessarily scared does tie in with the physical appearance of the entity being a big bulky, yet athletic. Very fascinating. That it had no eyes. You both will have been sensing its energy, and its predatory nature. You both did well to keep in the car and keep driving, most likely would have ended badly. If you would have stopped at all. OP responded to the weird witch person. The strangest thing is that both me and my mate agreed that when we saw it, it's like it caused our perception to be put off for a moment. It made us ignore it, until it was out of sight. Then when it was in the bushes, I could remember it. I'm really freaked out by it. Never seen anything remotely paranormal, nor do I believe in it. I might do now, though. The weird witch person responded to OP. How fascinating. Perhaps this entity sensed you approaching in your car, and used some kind of ability to make you not pay attention to it. Until you were already past it, and it was safely in the bushes. I would advise not driving along that road, if possible, or any very close neighboring roads, just in case. If you'd like, I can give you some instructions on how to make some very basic, yet effective protection pouches. There are quite a few additional comments. The link is in the description below. In the comments, let me know what you think OP encountered. Was it paranormal or a hitchhiker? On Saturday night, at around 11 p.m. I was at my house when I decided to go outside for a breath of fresh air. But when I was walking to the door, I got the increasing feeling I was being watched. And it only got worse when I got outside. It didn't help that, when I looks around my yard and my neighbors' yards, I kept seeing these weird shadow human figures that weren't there when I looked again. To top it off, the last week or so, I've been seeing humanoid figures in my room and closet. I am a practicing Wiccan, if that adds anything. Any idea what's happening? ETA, today I was with some friends, and I saw another figure. And one of them said they saw it too. This was confirmed when it left my vision, and we both said it's gone, at the same time. The third said she sensed something off about the area we were in, but didn't see anything. Here are some of the comments from this post. Dominator Prime commented, "Should be related with the things you are studying. Try to stop that, and see if your situation improves." Xylorgos also commented, "If you think you were visited by something potentially harmful, I suggest you use what your religion tells you to do, in such circumstances. Not being a Wiccan myself, I can't give you advice. But I would suggest you don't use objects or techniques that aren't Wiccan, since those won't be as powerful." Significant Fee 3083 suggested, "Perhaps you could implement some protection, warding, centering exercises, or rituals into your daily regimen. I imagine that would be invaluable in keeping your own sanctuary. Good luck." In the comments below, let me know what you think. What did OP encounter? Was it human, or something more supernatural? So I guess I don't really have any proof, except my personal experience. But I'd appreciate any input to figure this out. I keep seeing the shadowy figure in my house. I'm about 6'1", and I'd say from the time I saw it right behind me, in my bathroom it's gotta be at least 6'6". Or just at least a head taller. I've had many encounter, but only recently have I had feelings of anxiety when I see it. It's just a tall shadowy figure, with more recently white eyes. The first experience I had was when I first got the house. My house is around 100 years old, not too sure on exact age. I was laying in my bed, trying to go to sleep, and there it was. In the corner of my room, on the first floor. I thought it was just my imagination, so I blinked a couple of times with no change. And then squeezed my eyes tightly, but when I opened them, it only changed the corner it was in. It was looking out the window, for some time, but then slowly walked towards me and sat next to me, on my bed. At about knee level or a little lower. It looked like it was cradling its face in its hand, and kinda sobbing. I felt a little remorse for it, and then it snapped to look at me. At this time, I felt no anxiety towards this shadow thing. It then began to outreach its arm, and kinda crawl up to my face. When it reached my face, I felt like it was going to kiss me or something, so I felt a sudden urge to slap it away. When I did, it vanished. And I didn't see it for some time, till recently. Now it'll be behind me, in the bathroom. If my lights are out, while I look in the mirror. But always just vanish, when I turn around. I think I've only gotten a glimpse of it, in that setting. But not enough to see much for any amount of time. It usually stays across my living room, when I'm walking from bathroom to my room. It only shows when I'm not paying attention, and not for very long. And I only get a short spike of anxiety when I see it. If I see it for longer, those feelings slowly fade. And when that happens, so does this shadow. Am I just seeing things, 'cause I feel like it would have done something by now? I've downloaded an EMF reader, on my phone. I know it's not super viable, and I'll run at around 0.45, but sometimes I'll just turn it on for no reason. While I sleep and put it above my head, and it'll jump to 2.4 and climb to about 2.9 till it just drops back to a 0.4. Is this anything substantial at all, or am I just paranoid? Here are a couple comments from this post. An unknown Redditor commented, "Set cameras with night vision, infrared around the house. If you find definitive evidence, then you can communicate through an experienced practitioner. It would also help to learn about house history." OP responded to the unknown Redditor, "Thanks. I guess I'll have to make an investment in that then." In the comments below, let me know what you think OP encountered. Was it a shadow person? So, I have COVID again, and I'm bored. So, I've decided to share a few instances of my creepiest experiences to keep me entertained. Here's one from about 10 years ago. I rented a room from my aunt on 2 different occasions. She has her own house, and it's just her and a bunch of dogs. She used to be a professional breeder, German Shepherds. We get along great, and just hang out and talk a lot of times. She's a Wiccan, and I have an avid fascination with the occult. When I was about 20, I moved into the spare bedroom. She crated up a couple of her dogs, in her bedroom upstairs. Because certain dogs couldn't be alone with others. So she could go out and grab a drink with her boyfriend. I decided I was going to start unpacking, set up my computer, etc. As I was sitting in my room, at the end of the hall, directly under my aunt's room, from down the hall and off the loft, I hear a low rumbling growling noise. I go up to check, and it's one of her dogs. Low to the ground and staring out the door, intently growling. I had never seen her do this before. She perked up when I came around the corner, and seemed relieved to see me. I gave her pets to calm her down, and went back downstairs. Then she started doing it again. After the third time, I decided I would just ignore it for a bit. Then she started barking like crazy. So again, I run upstairs, calm her down, go back downstairs. Well, after a few times of low growling, then barking, eventually letting her out of the cage and hanging out with her a bit, I gave up. Finally, I'm like, whatever, I'm just gonna let her growl and bark. I've searched around the house and property at this point, in case of intruders. Nothing. So, I'm setting up my computer, ignoring her increasing aggressiveness. It's then that I think I hear two men talking, up on the loft. It's faint, but dramatic enough for me to once again go check. The voices fade as I come to the end of the hall and pass under the loft. I go up and check anyways, calm down the dog, nothing. Her father in the crate next to her, is also staring intently out of the room onto the loft. But he's being completely quiet. This is uncharacteristic for him, as well. He's usually the loud one. This happens again. The more I try to ignore it, the more I'm thinking there must be a radio on somewhere. This didn't make a lot of sense, as we rarely had devices on unless we were using them, which was uncommon. Sure enough, after searching the house top to bottom again, nothing. Finally, I'm frustrated. I go back to setting up my computer and unpacking. Dead set I would ignore all noises. Must be in my head or something. I don't know. She's just upset because she's wondering where her person is or something. Trying to write everything off to something explainable, I continue. The conversation fading back in again, I swear I can almost make out the words now. So I listen. Then, from directly in my open doorway, mere feet away around the corner, I hear what sounds like a child saying, "Hello." I sprang up, grabbed my firearm and clear the freaking house, and property like a one-man SWAT team. Voices fade out as I exit the room. Again, nothing. I let the dog out of the crate, and go sit down at the kitchen table to have a beer and wait for my aunt to return. The dog sat close, at my feet the whole time. I hear faint voices from time to time, over the next half hour. My aunt gets home and asks why she's out of her crate. And I told her everything. She aggressively yells, "Knock it off." And has a seat. Apparently, she had been experiencing things like this for months. Whenever she's in the house alone, and never thought to mention it. Our family has a sensitivity to this stuff. But I guess she assumed that only applied to the women in the family. It's something I've known I've had for a long time. But until that moment she was adamant that, because I'm a guy, I'm not as sensitive to these things as her and her sisters. Also my grandmother and her mother, and further back potentially. She then informed me, if I hear knocking at the front door to check. As opposed to just saying come in. Apparently something had been trying to trick her into inviting it in, as well. I think she may have played with something she shouldn't have, out of ignorance. Something I have plenty of experience with now, but back then it really freaked me out. I know more about all this stuff now, and have had other experiences throughout my life. Both before and after this event. But this is one of the first ones that really convinced me that our world around us is much stranger than it seems at times. I'll share a couple more of these stories, as my sickness and boredom progress. I only really have two other big ones. Cheers. Here are some of the comments from this post. Blueberry Extreme 8062 commented. Well, the family members are not the only sensitives. Those dogs sure are. Extension Piece 9922 also commented. When you mentioned the knocking and having to make sure before saying, come in, I got the absolute chills. Only demons and evil entities need permission to enter. That's some scary shit. Girl Introvert pointed out. Wow. Dogs in cages. OP responded to Girl Introvert. I know, I felt bad when she had to lock them up too. She ended up giving up her dogs, because they were too much for her to handle by herself anymore. We were in the process of adopting them out, when this all happened. We took shifts to make sure they all got love, but some of them just weren't able to play nice with others. She just had trouble, because she wanted to make sure her remaining pups, full-grown pups, went to good homes. I did the best I could to help, but she also didn't trust anyone else. She had just lost her partner and husband, to manage which one fought, which ones were fixed, which ones weren't, etc. They were fairly expensive breeding dogs and professionally trained. But she loved them all. So trying to find the right people to take care of them was a whole process. The whole thing broke her heart. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. Do you think OPs aren't drew the supernatural to her home? Non-believer, but had stuff happen I couldn't explain. So I'll say I'm a non-believer in all things. Spiritual, demons, ghosts, God, etc. etc. I'm 24 now. The events I'm going to describe were when I was around my teenage years, like 15 to 18, when still living with my parents. So the first thing was, I'm not sure if this paranormal related or not. But I woke up with scratches a lot, not like little scrapes or anything from just everyday activity. But like deep, long scratches that looked almost like claw marks, usually in sets of 3 or 4. They were all over my body, in random places. When I asked my parents about them, they just said, "Oh, you're probably scratching yourself in your sleep or something. Don't worry about it." But I kept my nails trimmed and couldn't replicate them, while awake. They continued appearing until I moved out of the upstairs bedroom, into the now finished basement. The second event, also in the same bedroom, was I was 16, I think. I was having trouble sleeping one night. I regularly, and still do, have some minor sleeping problems, but most nights I slept with my door closed. For whatever reason, I left it open that night. Must have just forgot to close it or something. Anyway, I'm tossing and turning. I look at my phone, it's like 3:45 AM. I'm like, shit, I gotta be up for school soon. So I roll over in bed, about to go to the bathroom, and I look at my door. And there was a white figure, almost looked a man with no face, wearing some kind overcoat. Leaning in my door, just staring at me. It scared the hell out of me. I rolled back over and kept my head under the covers. Checking every so often, it was still there. Just staring at me. Eventually, I just passed out and my alarm woke me up for school, and it was gone, in the morning. Anyway, those were my experiences. Sorry for the long post, just figured I'd share. Get some thoughts and opinions. I chalk up the second encounter to lack of sleep, but the scratches, I still can't explain. Thanks for hearing me out. Here are some of the comments from this post. Direct Dilsey commented, "Time to be a believer. Anyhow, now you are out of that bedroom. So no need to worry. Keep watch on person who uses it now." OP responded to Direct Dilsey, "I don't live there anymore, it was at my parents' house. And I don't know, I try to find logical explanations in things. There has to be one." Extension Piece 9922 responded to OP. "Only logical explanation would be that your dad, or a strange man pranked you with special lights and expensive makeup. In the middle of the night, for no other reason than to just do it. Honestly, I'd take a creepy ghost demon over that any day. You ever played with one of those Ouija boards? Might have welcomed it in. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. Do you think it's time for OP to be a believer?" The videos so far have been thought-provoking. If you're enjoying the video so far, hit the like button. If you want to see more of our compilation videos, or any of the other videos in my other series, hit the subscribe button, and the notification bell, to never miss a future video. If you would like your encounter featured on a future video, you can send it to contacthistoryunicorn@gmail.com. You can submit anonymously, or I can give you a shout out. Just let me know your preference in the email. Share in the comments what you think about the encounters we've discussed so far. I have a lifetime of unexplained events, but here is my most recent one. I'm a house cleaner in a small town, and was working on an acreage at the edge of town. I suspect it was built in the 70s, and it was only my second time in this house. This time I was working alone in the evening. The homeowners were not home, so I was by myself with their large, friendly dog. The first thing that made me uneasy was that the normally quiet dog suddenly went crazy, at one point around dusk. I thought he was sleeping on the couch, and out of nowhere he was awake. Running across the living room, barking like crazy. It gave me a minor heart attack, as I always work with headphones on, listening to music. I wrote this off, because I thought maybe he'd seen wildlife or a cat out the window. Next, I noticed a lamp in the bedroom on. It was one of those lamps you turn on by touching it, but I swore that I had turned it off after cleaning the room earlier. By the time it was pitch black outside, I turned off that same lamp 3 or 4 times. I was feeling creeped out, but thought it might have been caused by some faulty electrical. Nearing the end of my job, I was listening to country music from a popular playlist on my headphones. As I was cleaning near the top of the staircase, the music suddenly stopped and 2 children's voices came over my headphones. "Come play with us, Daddy." Then silence. And the song continued. By this point, I said, "Nope," and finished up cleaning as fast as possible. And got out of there. I did replay the song to ensure it wasn't a weird edit, and it played normally without the voices. My phone screen was off during this event, so it was not an accidental flip to a video. And when I checked it, it was still on the playlist screen. Never cleaning that house after dark again. Here's some of the comments from this post. Coco Mimi 3 commented. One night, around 11 p.m. I was on the phone with a girlfriend of mine and I heard a little girl laughing. And I was like, "Oh, your kids are up." And she's like, "No, I was gonna ask you the same thing." And I'm like, no. This happened in my brother's condo in Miami. And this condo was built really close to an Indian circle. Miss Pallet also commented. Eerie, but if will you be going there again? You perhaps should get yourself some protection. Like a stone crucifix or something you find comfort in. OP responded to Miss Pallet. You're very right. I'll probably bring something small that I can carry on me, while working. In the comments below, let me know what you think OP heard. Was it a ghost or a trick of the electronics? A few nights ago, on Friday, I went to my father's house. I was having a great time and decided to go to sleep, so I shut my door. As I like having my TV on, while sleeping, and it was late. I was sleeping in my stepbrother's room, and he wasn't there. The layout of the room isn't really important except where the bed and door are positioned. The foot of the bed is at the door, but it's used as the head. As my stepbrother has a desk, so I can't see the TV. Anyway, I went to sleep and woke up on Saturday, at about 8:03 am. And something felt off. The sensation that you're being watched. I looked behind me, and I saw a pure white figure. It didn't have features, but I think I could make out hair, as its head connected to its shoulders. It seemed to glow, but didn't emit light. And when I say pure white, I mean pure white. It wasn't affected by the darkness of the room, which was almost pitch black. I just stared at it, while it looked down at me. As I had just woke up, I wasn't too fussed and just confused. And said what the hell. And after that it just floated away, through my now open door. And I know it was real, I've never hallucinated in the past. And it wasn't a dream, as after I grabbed a Mountain Dew, hopped on my Xbox. I asked my sister and stepmother if it was them, but they both woke up after that. And slept with their hair up. I'm still super confused, someone please tell me what I saw. Here are some of the comments from this post. Black Opalxo commented. It could be an angel. Or guardian. Have you lost any family members that you were close to? And you said you weren't too fussed. So, if it wasn't a bad or dark feeling you got, then I don't think it was evil or a spirit who had ill intent. Did the room go cool or colder while it was there? Or was it a warm feeling? If it was warm and you had a feeling of comfort, maybe it could be someone watching over you. OP responded to Black Opalxo. I can't remember very well, but maybe a bit cool or warm. Kinda around the middle. And yeah, I wasn't too fussed and just a little scared and confused. And yes, I have lost close family in the past, but not recently. Black Opalxo responded to OP. Do you remember smelling anything? OP responded to Black Opalxo. No, not really. Black Opalxo responded to OP. I'm not an expert, but I have experienced a lot of spiritual stuff. From my understanding, usually when someone sees a dark shadow or silhouette, it's most likely a negative energy, entity? Along with the area getting quite cold and usually a foul odor as well. So, if you didn't experience any of that, then yeah. It's just possible that it's a loved one that's watching over you. Even if you haven't lost anyone recently, you could still have a loved one that's checking up on you, now and then. That would explain the reason it was looking down at you, like you described. But we can never be certain, can we? Just go with your gut feeling, always. Zylorgos responded to OP. I've heard of distant relatives that people haven't even met. Like grandparents who have died before the person was born, who will occasionally keep an eye on us. I wouldn't worry about this one, because it didn't cause you distress. If it keeps coming back and you don't like that, just tell them to please go away. Because they are disturbing you. Edit to add, since you weren't in your own bedroom, maybe they came to visit your stepbrother. OP responded to Zylorgos. My stepbrother's a demon child. Zylorgos responded to OP. Just how do you mean that? Demon child as in really rude and obnoxious? Or more like all black eyes and sometimes speaks in a really deep voice? OP responded to Zylorgos. He is really obnoxious, feels the need to bully my friends, because of their beliefs. A few of my friends are gay. Hits me for no apparent reason, bullies my sister, and punches her even though she has glasses. Just to name a few. Zylorgos responded to OP. Sounds like a terrible person. I'm sorry you have to deal with him, in your life. Dark entities may be attracted to him, because of the way he behaves. Mrs. Murphy's cow also commented. The pure white description is what caught my attention. The only time I've seen pure white entities, they have, by what happened during their appearance, were angels, good spirits. Watchers, protectors, if you will. After a lifetime of dealing with all kinds of spirits entities, I always welcome the pure white ones. They always bring peacefulness and calm with them. Hello White Girl 007 responded to Mrs. Murphy's cow. I saw a figure which was all white, as a kid. I was 9 years old and I saw some dancing lights, and as I thought that it was sunlight being reflected, from a crystal ball. The light transformed into white smoke and formed a humanoid figure. It wasn't fully manifested, just the front of the head, the shoulders, the ribs. Then nothing but a small tail, which was supposed to be the spine, and the hips. Then some arms. It started to slowly walk towards the hallway, and as I watched in shock and awe, it went into the wall and disappeared. I am Anger 101 chimed in. I'd wager this is more of a case of dreaming, bleeding over. Were you sleeping well? Have you been having issues sleeping consistently? There have been times where I've woken up, in the middle of a nap, and not been sleeping well. And had similar hallucinations. Getting caught in a between sleep-awake state, has more forms than just sleep paralysis. Let me know, in the comments below. What do you think OP experienced? What was the figure that OP encountered? Human or entity? First, let me start by saying that I am the youngest of 5. To tell you my story we must travel back some 30 years. I'll begin by telling you from a young age, I've always seen things I could never explain. From the things you catch out the corners of your eyes, to shadows, to even shadow figures look at me from around corners. Strangely, I don't ever remember being afraid. I guess because I never felt any harm, or danger. Peaceful, I would have to describe it, because I felt watched over. I grew up in a small 3-bedroom apartment, with my mother and 2 of my siblings. One of my brothers and one of my sisters. So being the youngest, in the house, I wasn't allowed to sleep or even be in my siblings' bedrooms. You're too young, I need my privacy," they would say. Leaving me around 7 years old, at the time, to sleep in the living room. The furniture was arranged in a way, to where the sofa was in line with the bathroom. This will be relevant, in a second. One night, I remember that it was just me and my mother, and her friend, wink wink. It was years ago, so I can't recall where my brother and sister were. Needless to say, they were not at home. So now, it's bedtime and there's just the three of us. My mother and her friend are in her room, and me. Well, I'm on the sofa. Between the sofa and bathroom was a hallway that connected the bedrooms, where I used its light as a nightlight. So, it was well lit. As I lie there, starting to fall asleep, I begin to hear things. Then eventually, I begin to hear a lady call out my name. The first time or two, I paid no mind. But after I heard it a few more times, I begin to get butterflies in my stomach. At first, I begin to just look into the living room, to which I have a full view of, from where I'm laying. I see nothing. But when she calls out one more time, I realize where the voice is coming from. It's coming from the bathroom. In the bathroom's doorway, is where she stood. A lady in all white. She was faceless with bright golden light surrounding her, as she seemed to just be floating there, while her white dress moved as if being blown by a slight breeze. There she was, her arms reaching out, calling out my name, in a soft and pleasant voice. As a child, it frightened the hell out of me, leading me to scream at the top of my lungs, once I realized what was happening. By the time my mother ran out to see what was wrong, she was gone. I never seen her again after that. But occasionally I do hear the voice call out my name. Here are a couple of comments from this post. Cultural at 7737 asked, what do you think it is? OP responded to Cultural at 7737. I honestly don't know. For a while I thought that it might have been my grandmother, who passed a year or two before the incident. But it couldn't have been, because the lady spoke in perfect English, and my grandma spoke only Spanish. In the comments below, let me know what you think OP experienced. Was it a spirit, or a human? My boyfriend and I just moved into a new house in St. George, Utah. The development is fairly new, and we live in a little apartment above a garage that's attached to the main house. The guy who lives in the main house is a family friend, and I don't think that he is what's causing this at all, but who knows. The first couple of nights that we moved here, I was getting awful sleep and the craziest dreams. But I just chalked it up to anxiety. My boyfriend also kept mentioning that he heard something in the living room and kitchen at night, almost like someone was moving around, tapping on the walls, etc. Mind you, this apartment is barely 700 square foot. And we can see the kitchen from our bedroom door. I didn't think much of it, because once again this is a new development, and there's no way that there could be a ghost. But I definitely think I'm wrong now. Little things kept happening, like a bag of bagels flying off the shelf and onto the counter, a plate being knocked off the counter, and just weird noises kept happening, but nothing too crazy. Last night, my boyfriend and I went to bed around midnight, and at 1:45 he woke up coughing like crazy. The noise woke me up and my first thought was that he was choking. He ran to the bathroom, and was coughing so hard that he was throwing up. I went into the kitchen and got him some water, and when I walked into the bathroom and got close to him, my feet and legs started immediately burning, like they were on fire. And he kept telling me over and over that it felt like someone was choking him from the inside, and that his throat was burning. Also, the house was freezing and there was a weird smell. Almost fishy, but also kind of like poop. That honestly could have just been my mind playing tricks on me, though. When he finally stopped coughing, we went back to bed and he laid down. About 2 minutes later, he sat straight up in bed and said, "That person." Paused, and then said, "That person," gave me the worst feeling. I kept asking him over and over, What person, what are you talking about?" To which he answered, almost yelling, "What is different than all the other nights we've been here?" At this point I was panicking. I had no idea what he was talking about, and I was obviously so freaked out. I turned on the TV, Cause there was no way I was going to be able to sleep, and I didn't think he was going to either. But when I turned over, he was dead asleep. I sat there for hours, until it started getting light out with the TV on. He was drinking last night, so maybe that has something to do with it. But we are both completely freaked out, and have decided that we will not be sleeping tonight. Does anyone know what we should do? Or what this could be? It's currently 4:30 AM. We both are wide awake with all the lights on, absolutely terrified after what happened. Here are some of the comments from this post. Xylorgos commented. Spirits can be attached to the land. So even newly built homes, that are built on haunted land can also become haunted. If you live anywhere near Skinwalker Ranch, you might want to check out what is happening there, as part of your investigation into what's going on. FROG2 also commented. You have a powerful demon on your hands. I'd seriously suggest moving out or getting an exorcist, because you could be in danger. That rotten smell is a signal of demons. And if it was able to choke him, and physically hurt him that badly, then it is really strong and really wants you out. Salt circles are a protection against demons. And if you are in one, the demon will not be able to touch you. I hope your situation gets better, and stay safe. Visible Drama 4326 chimed in. He is a powerful one, from what you said. Message me with more. I do spirit communication, also I study demonology. You have a demon in your house, that does not like your boyfriend. It wants you to itself. It seems like to me. How's it going? OP responded to Visible Drama 4326. We stayed with family for a couple of nights. We've been back here, the past 2 nights? So far, everything has been pretty normal, other than we both feel a little bit depressed. Extension Piece 9922 advised. Shit, better scram. I agree with everyone else here. If you sunk all of your money into this place though, I highly suggest a cleansing, blessing and/or exorcism of the house. Get into touch with your local church. And see if they can send someone out. Look into spiritual mediums, psychics, in your area too. That can give you a better idea on what you're dealing with. I wish you guys the best of luck, and may the white light protect you guys in your struggles. You guys are stronger than this thing. Visible Drama 4326 asked. Are you having trouble still? OP responded to Visible Drama 4326. Tonight will be our first night back, in the house. We've been staying with family. Let me know, in the comments below. Do you think OP experienced a demon, or a different type of entity? I, 27 female, started dating my boyfriend, 27 male, around 7 months ago. And it has been going very smoothly. I love him so much, and I can't wait to see what happens next. When we first started hanging out, I would stay at his apartment overnight. And one night he confessed that he thought a ghost was haunting him. I laughed it off, and told him it wasn't likely. He was alone in this quiet apartment, with one kitty. And it probably got spooky, at night in the dark. One night, we were laying in bed, falling asleep, when the door to his bedroom shut abruptly. I was startled, and sat up. He just told me it was the suction from the AC turning on. I thought it was strange, and got up to open the door, so Kitty could walk in and out of rooms freely. He meows and scratches otherwise. When I opened the door, my hand was still on the handle and I felt a tug. Like it was trying to shut again. I opened it all the way back up. Laid back in bed, and had my eyes on the door for a few minutes before falling asleep. After that, once in a while I would get a strange feeling. Like eyes lingering on me when I would get up, in the middle of the night to pee. My boyfriend and I decided to move in together. And we just got our new place this past week. It's been so stressful. The first night we moved in, the door closed on itself, in our new master bedroom. Which my boyfriend again said was just the AC. We both woke up with terrifying nightmares that night, and my boyfriend even cried. It's stressful moving in, but the weirdest thing happened a few days ago. We were both in bed, at night. I was watching TikToks, and he had fallen asleep next to me. He was tossing and turning, and shaking a little. I rubbed his back, and he half woke from his nightmare to tell me don't go in there. I said go where? I was consoling him, when we heard something clatter out in the living room. I suspected it to be Kitty, so I got up to take a look. My boyfriend was too scared to come with me, his nightmare had shaken him pretty badly. I found Kitty sleeping in his little cave, and nothing seemed like it had fallen. I went back into bed, and at this point my boyfriend continued to tell me about his dream. He said he saw a ghost, in his dream. And that I couldn't see it. So I tried to walk towards it, and then it disappeared. As he is telling me this story, we both see Kitty's tail and furry back crawling at the corner of the floor by the bed, and we assume he's walked into the bedroom to cuddle. We both start calling for him to jump up, but he doesn't. I look at my boyfriend, and we both feel this creeping feeling. And I tell him to turn on his light. I hang off the end of the bed, to see if Kitty is hiding, but no. Kitty isn't there. I get up again, and go back to the living room. And see Kitty is still sleeping in his cave. I walk back to the room and get in bed. We both slept with the lights on that night. The next day, I told my mom about everything. And she told me to sage the place, which we did. He wrote down some mantras, we opened all the windows and doors. And we went clockwise around the entire apartment, saying our mantras and then closing. I feel better since we did this, but also worried that there is something attached to my boyfriend. Or something that he owns. I know it's not that crazy, but both of us seeing something together in our bedroom. Just felt way too eerie. I'll update if anything else happens. Here are some of the comments from this post. GullibleWind7049 commented. Things can attach to people. Is a matter of figuring out the why. He or someone in his family mess with things as kids. Like a Ouija board. Going into a haunted house to try looking for something. I suggest trying to narrow that down first. You can also mark protection runes on the walls and doors in the place. Using chalk to see if that helps. OP responded to GullibleWind7049. This makes me think I could have let something in, as well. Because I did stupid things like that as a kid. GullibleWind7049 responded to OP. Not impossible, but odd that he did. He thought something was haunting him. Sometimes things can get attached to negative emotions. So if things had been stressful for a while, it can latch onto people experiencing that situation, and basically feed off it. Try only watching or listening to positive, or happy things for a while. And see if it changes anything. Think Disney movies and happy silly shows. It can help, by not giving it anything to feed from. There are many more comments on this post. If you would like to see more, the link is in the comments below. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. Does OP's boyfriend have an attachment? So this happened over the summer, but I've only just started to talk about it. Because it freaks me out because I'm a skeptic. I don't believe in ghosts, spirits, entities, demons. Whatever you wanna call them, but I can't explain this without using the paranormal. Basically, I was at home. The only other person in the house was my younger sister, who was in her room. I went into the kitchen, and had that feeling that someone was looking at me. I turned around to see who or what was looking at me. And saw what appeared to be a full-body shadow figure, of sorts. Duck behind the corner. It was pretty tall, not inhumanly tall. Which makes me hopeful that it might not be a demon, since they're usually described as being unnaturally tall. Kind of translucent, and had the clear figure of a human. I naturally freaked out. I told whatever it was to go away, and I flipped it off. Partially because you thought it might have been my sister, trying to scare me. I don't know which of those things it was, but I angered it. I felt a scratch on my back, which promptly started bleeding. I didn't touch my back, and there was no one behind me who could have done it. And no object close enough to have scratched me. I'm fascinated by the paranormal despite being a skeptic. I watch so many paranormal investigator YouTubers. Sam and Colby. Seth Borden. Exploring with Josh. Mackie, and Amanda. Destination Fear, etc., and I always try to debunk and justify everything using logic. This one I can't, and more I think about it, the more convinced I start to become, because I know what I saw, and I know what. Here are some of the comments from this post. OK Music 6351 commented, "Uck, I'm so sorry this happened to you, really spooky. That sounds dangerous. I hope you can get some good advice from people on here. I'm useless. When did it happen? Has anything happened since? Out of interest. Which paranormal investigators that you watch do you find to be real? Or is it all you listed? I'll have to give them a watch tonight. I also love stuff like that. I've tried to watch a few, and gave up. Because I found the typical fakes ones. But I don't recognize any of them names, so we'll give them a go." OP responded to OK Music 6351. "Thanks. Honestly, I was kinda more shocked than scared at the time. Definitely more scared. Looking back at it, than I was when it happened. No. Nothing since. This happened in August, September time. We've been living here for almost 13 years, so I have no idea why nothing has happened before. In terms of investigators, as I mentioned, I'm a huge fan of Sam and Colby, Seth Borden, and Exploring with Josh mostly. They're all YouTubers, and they all interact together. And I personally trust them, to be honest with their content. I also like Mackie and Amanda on YouTube. Amanda is a psychic medium. I personally, as a skeptic, find it harder to trust that, as I don't fully believe in mediums, psychics. But I still love their content. On Netflix, I've been watching 28 Days Haunted, a show where 3 teams are staying in haunted locations for 28 days. And My Encounter with Evil, I think it's called. Both very cool shows." FROG2 also commented, "So it does sound like a demonic entity. The black shadows and scratches are a giveaway. I understand and respect that you're skeptic, but I would cleanse yourself with some sage to remove any traces of the entity that could have followed you. Violence means it has a lot of power, as well. Now I'm not saying conjuring style power, but more power than a typical spirit. Physical interaction most likely means you invaded its territory. Or it's just absolutely pissed off with something you did. Or just your presence. If you think it could have followed or attached itself to you, because sometimes scratches can mean you've been marked, definitely get some kind of medium or priest to help out." OP responded to FROG2. "Ah well, that's fun then. I've read about demonic attachments, after it happened. Because I had considered it. I've watched way too many Sam and Colby videos to not have considered it a possibility. I'll try to cleanse myself and the house, as much as I can without my more skeptical than me parents getting concerned, and calling me names and stuff. We've lived in this house for almost 13 years, and nothing like this has ever happened. Either it's been dormant, or it's come about recently. My friend happens to be a psychic medium, so I'll get in contact. Thanks for the advice." There are more comments to this post, if you would like to see more. The link is in the description below. In the comments, let me know what you think. What do you think scratched OP? So an ex of mine had a cat, important for later. His name was Oliver, and he was a cat that looked like Garfield. Whenever I went to her house, he was my cat. He had to sleep wherever I slept. I took care of him whenever I was at her place. He loved me and was attached to me, for some reason. Can someone please explain this phenomenon in comment? Thanks. Well, Oliver had an excessive buildup of urinary crystals, and she put him down sadly. Fast forward a year later, I lived close to the TCU campus, in Fort Worth, Texas. There was one house I didn't like walking by late at night. When the house was unrented, because I was being watched by the entity that lived there. Whenever it was rented, though, it never watched me. So I knew some frat guys that lived there, and I would ask them about the ghost to no avail. 3 months into the school year, they left their doors unlocked and went to the bars. Someone broke in that night, and they decided to move the next day. After they were moved into the new place, one of them asked me to go to the house, at night, to check for their laptop cord. Big mistake. There was a hallway to the bedrooms that led into the kitchen. But before the kitchen was an entryway into the living room, where French doors used to be. As I was walking through the hall to the kitchen, I felt something on my leg. It was a smoky white cat, and it started to disappear as it walked around my leg. It also had an aura of warmth and love to it. I believe it was Oliver warning me. As soon as it disappeared, I felt from the living room an evil energy. And as I turned to look, I saw two red eyes and a feeling of it wanted me dead. So I got the hell out of there? Oh. And his flippin' cord wasn't there. So I went there for nothing and got a scare. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think Oliver dropped by to see his favorite human? First off, let me get this straight. I do not believe in demons, ghosts or any of that paranormal stuff. Most of the time, when things I cannot explain happen, I brush it off as coincidences. Anyways, let me get to the story. First off, I do not know exactly how long ago this was. But this happened when I was around 6 to 10, and was living in the projects. When I went to daycare, I remember the staff telling a story about how their grandmother, or something like that, had died. I will try my best to remember the story, and tell it. They claimed that their family member had been laying in bed sleep, when they had suddenly woken up, and saw a black figure walk into the bathroom. So their family member got up and followed it into the bathroom, and checked it out. Their family member died that same night. Now looking back on it, this is clearly fake, but this absolutely terrified me as a kid. And this is what prompted me to sleep with my covers over my eyes. And I still occasionally do. Anyways, shortly after that, I assume I started having sleep paralysis episodes frequently. I think it's best I mention that I sleep on a bunk bed too. That would directly face my window, that's visible from the end of the bed. I remember these episodes like they happened yesterday. The first episode happened when I had woken up in the middle of the night, in the pitch black dark. I then looked at the end of my bunk bed, and that's when I saw it. It was a tall black figure, that was just barely taller than my bunk bed. It was completely black, with only white eyes. It did nothing, but stood there. I couldn't speak or move, I was completely frozen. After this, I actually can't remember nothing. I don't know what happens after this. All I know is, I saw something staring at me. Now this second encounter is actually my worst, and happened not long after the first. This time it was not a shadow figure, but rather an old lady. It's very similar to the first one. Let me tell it. Again, I had woken up in the middle of the night, and this time I looked around my room. And then looked at the foot of my bed. This time an old lady was clinging on to the foot of the bunk bed. I was terrified as hell, and tried to scream as loud as I could. But nothing. Nothing came out, and I could not move. The thing then jumped onto my chest, and just looked dead into my eyes. It became impossible to breathe, and I thought I was about to die. Again, this is all I can remember. The last encounter I ever had at this house goes like this. I had fallen asleep one day, I assume, and had woken up. I couldn't move, and all I could do is look at the ceiling. I could however hear my parents talking from the living room. And that was all. I later then gained control, and just got up, and I remember my sister telling me that I had been asleep for a whole day. After this we lived at that place for a bit longer, and I never had an encounter again. But it doesn't stop there. We moved to the place I am currently still living at, and this is actually the last paranormal event I've ever had at home. This happened maybe 2 years ago. I was playing Roblox on my Xbox, all alone since I had basically no friends. And still have really no friends except for two. My room door was wide open, and I had my eyes locked on my TV. It was also completely silent, I just add. For some reason I decided to look outside my room door, and that's when I saw a little girl chasing something run right by door, and into my sister's room. Me being dumb, I got up and looked out into the hallway. And saw nothing. My sister's door was shut, and I didn't hear it open and shut. After that I shut my door, locked it, and called my mom. And asked her if she could hurry up and come home. After this, nothing at this house that was paranormal ever happened again. I do however, have times where I'll wake up and won't be able to move certain areas of my body. And then be completely frozen. And to combat this, I have to jerk my body and try my best to move. But this is the end of my story, and I don't have anything to explain these encounters, other than the brain being bored and amusing itself. If you made it this far, thanks for reading. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. Do you think it was a ghost or something more human? A few years ago, I was alone at home and sleeping at night. However, I woke up and realized some presence in my house. I walked out of my room, and as soon as I come out of my room, my flatmate's room is right next to mine. So I peered in her room to see that maybe she had come home. And I saw the blanket in her room hovering above her bed. I got very scared and went back in my room, immediately deciding that I should leave the house. Once I decided to leave, something shifted. And I realized that I was back in my bed and the above mention was just a dream. Realizing this, I reached out for my bedside lamp. But the lamp would not switch on. I saw the time on the clock and it was 3 AM. There was enough light in my room, from the street lamps outside. As my eyes got more comfortable to the room's darkness, I looked out of the room towards my bedroom door. From where the kitchen entrance is visible, and so is the refrigerator, the surface of the refrigerator is mildly reflective. And on it I could see a shadowy figure standing inside the kitchen. I realized that I needed to leave the house and call my boyfriend. So I picked up my phone and started to leave. To leave the house, I had to cross the kitchen and then the hall towards the main door. I wasn't sure what would happen once I crossed the kitchen, but I couldn't keep laying on my bed without getting myself out of the situation. After I crossed the kitchen, I could feel a very strong presence behind me. But I didn't dare look back, I just kept on walking till I reached the front door. As I opened the door and got out, immediately I realized that I was back in bed and had just woken up from a dream. Again, I reached out my hand to switch on my bedside lamp, and as soon as I switched it on, the bulb in my lamp fused with a sound. I checked the clock and it was 3 AM. After this, I slept the night listening to some sleep cast, and with the light in my room on. I would love to know if anyone has had a similar experience, or what you think of mine. I don't even know if it classifies as paranormal, but it was something. Here are some of the comments from this post. Fairchange4074 commented. Sounds kind of like sleep paralysis. I get it a few times a month, if not more. Some nights worse than others. But many times I know I am asleep, but I'm wandering around my house like a dream. Some say it's astral projection, where the soul leaves the body while you're sleeping. I don't know if that's true, but it is creepy as hell when it happens. True Professional 74 also commented. It does sound like astral projection. You should look into that. Hey Hio agreed. Absolutely astral projection, it tends to happen in multiples like that. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. Do you think this was sleep paralysis, astral projection, or something more mundane? This still freaks me out today. When I was around 6 or 7, we had moved into a new house and everything was fine. Nothing weird had happened, until about a few months later. I remember that I had woke up really late at night, and hearing my mom calling my name. So I got up and walked into the hall. I had said, "Mom." And she just kept saying my name, so I walked into the living room and asked, "Where are you?" To which I got a response, which was something like, "I'm behind the couch." So I walk over there and she's not there. So I said "Mom" a few more times, and there was no answer. This freaked me out, so I had ran to my parents' room. I pulled the door open, and as I was trying to shut it, something was pulling back on the other side. I remember my mom waking up from this, and asking what I was doing. I told her there was something pulling on the door, and she didn't believe me. Recently I had told my mom about this, and she said doesn't remember this happening. I later found out that demonic entities use the voice of a loved ones to lure you in. This absolutely terrifies me, knowing that I could have possibly died from this. I just wanted to know if anybody had any additional information about this. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. Do you think OP experienced a demon? Sorry if you've already read this on /Skinwalkers. I was advised to post this here instead. Edit for clarity. I was using Not Dear as a placeholder for Skinwalker when I wrote this. So I've been getting back into the paranormal lately, and have been telling my boyfriend about Not Dear. He's a skeptic about most everything, and has been mocking the whole thing. By saying the word over and over, kind of taunting them. When I tell him not to say the word out loud. I don't know if this matters, but he hasn't mocked them at our house. Because we don't really talk about that stuff here. I'm curious if anything he's experienced within the last few days has anything to do with them. The first event happened a couple of nights ago. He was changing his oil outside. We live in Alaska, and it gets dark around 4:30. So he's out there under the truck with his headlamp. I was inside making dinner, and talking to a friend on the phone. He came back inside, about 40 minutes after he started really frustrated. Because he couldn't get his oil plug off. Mind you, he's a strong guy, and should have been able to undo it. The next morning, he tells me that when he walked over to our neighbors to grab ramps. There's a small trail through the woods to their cabin, he heard voices in the woods, and decided it was our other neighbors across the street. Then he starts hearing my voice, it sounds like I'm on the phone. Which I was, only he's 50 yards away, with woods between us. He brushed this off, and kept working on the car. Before coming inside, and that was that. This morning, 3 days later. We're talking and he says he didn't sleep well. He says something happened that's been keeping him up, but he doesn't want to freak me out. I insist he tells me, and so he does. He woke up around 3:30, about the time I got up to pee. He went downstairs for a drink of water, before coming back to bed. He dreamt he was talking to our coworker, before waking up. A little more into a half-awake half-asleep kind of mental place. He heard a massive snowplow go by. We live on a dead-end gravel road, and don't get plows. Before hearing the ring doorbell sound it makes when you push the button. We don't have a ring. And then he heard our landlord, muffled and with a voice deeper than usual, say you've got a leak in your roof. So he jumps out of bed, runs to the front door and stops. Said things felt off, and he realized all of the aforementioned reasons why none of that made sense. He went back to bed terrified, he just told me he was close to grabbing the shotgun. Do any of these sound like Not Dear to you? We live in Alaska, so geographically it doesn't make sense. I was doing research a few weeks ago about cryptids in Alaska. And came across a few articles saying that whistling at night up here attracts spirits. And he was whistling while he was doing the oil change. Any opinions or advice are welcomed. Here are some of the comments from this post. Grey Mares in Space commented. So the Not Dear is confusing. It started at some point in the Allegheny or Appalachian mountain area. There were a few weird reports of people seeing deer that look humanoid and move on two legs. But what most people are now calling Not Dear are most likely deer with chronic wasting disease. It's also possible it has a fictional origin from some creepypasta type story. And people started seeing CWD deer and calling them Not Dear. If you or he are hearing something that can mimic, it can be a Bigfoot though. They are notorious for that. Red Menace also commented. Well, Not Dear are definitely not a thing. It's only popped up online in the last couple years as more of a creepypasta thing. More of like a Slender Man style creature. That being said, does sound consistent with other mimic type creatures, like skinwalkers. But I can't say Alaskan folklore is my forte. I'd look up some local resources if you can. See if there's anything specific to your area that might be well known. OP responded to Red Menace. When I say Not Dear, it is to avoid using the word S-Walker. I know we're online, but I still prefer not to say it. I'll check out local sources. Red Menace responded to OP. Duly noted, also worth noting. Skinwalkers are more associated with the southwestern US. So you can safely rule that out, the Wendigo is a more likely candidate in Alaska. And for the sake of your peace of mind. As far as I'm aware there are no such naming issues there. OP responded to Red Menace. I was using the words not deer, more as a placeholder for the word S-walker. Interesting, I didn't realize it originated from folks seeing deer with CWD. Also did not realize Bigfoot could mimic people like that. I thought that was more specific to S-walkers, so that's good to know. T-Phycology Banana also commented. As a previous commenter stated, Wendigos seem more likely in your area than flesh pedestrians, S-walkers. And I'm fairly certain have been known to mimic voices. I may be mistaken though. Let me know, in the comments below. What do you think OP's boyfriend heard? Was it a Bigfoot, Wendigo, Skinwalker, or something more mundane? Around maybe 15 to 17 years ago. I'm 37 now, in Lincoln County, West Virginia. I had a very strange cryptid experience. At the time, I had zero knowledge on anything cryptid, other than Mothman and Bigfoot. It came galloping across the road as I was driving. I came to a dead stop, and it looked straight at me. It had a pill-shaped body, with long white shaggy fur, long legs, and its feet were like wide polar bear paws. Weirdest thing was, it had no neck at all. And its face was kinda huge, and had this almost human-esque fear look. At this time, all I had was a flip phone. So quick pics were not an option, and I seen enough scary movies to not stick around. I floored it home. I always think about it though, especially driving that road. To my parents. I can never quite find a cryptid that matches it though. Any ideas? Let me know, in the comments below. What do you think OP encountered? Was it a cryptid or a more mundane animal? Starting off, I would just like to say that this is my first time writing and sharing about an experience I've had, growing up in the woods. You don't have to believe me, or any part of my story. But apart from whether you believe me, I know what I saw and experienced was real. Growing up, my brother T and I were adopted into a family of 8, around the time I was 4 and T was 6. I would say it was fairly normal adoption, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The family that adopted us lived in the Pacific Northwest. And they had a property of around 70 acres with nothing but woods around. The cabin they built is quite literally in the middle of the forest. You have to drive a considerable amount of time, 30 to 40 minutes, to get into the nearest town. On this property, my family built several shop buildings to store wood for the cold seasons, and to hold random equipment, machines. These buildings were spread all around the property. Some of them are even older than the cabin my father built. Only held together by old rotting wood and rusted steel. They always seemed to give off ominous vibes. You could oftentimes feel something watching you, if you ever went into them alone. And even with other people sometimes. I give all this context, just to give you perspective on the size of this property. And the feelings it gives off. This particular experience, I wanted to share today. Started on a night in the late summer, early fall. I was around 11 years old, at this time. The evening was slowing down, as I laid in the grass on the lawn outside of the cabin. Feeling a breeze pick up and observing the sunset, I decided it was time for me to head inside. I got inside and brushed my teeth. I then headed to my mom's room, to say goodnight to her. After that I went to my brother's room T, to say goodnight. We joked around and talked for a little bit, before I headed off to bed. As I was stepping outside, to go down into the cellar, where my room was, I couldn't help but feel like something was watching me. I quickly observed the deafening silence that accompanied this feeling. It was odd for the woods to be quiet at night, especially in the summer. You'd expect to hear the crickets and croaking of frogs, but there was nothing. I noted this, and with great haste, I ran down to the cellar. I kicked open the cellar door, that was made of solid oak slabs. It was the most efficient way of opening it, because it didn't have a traditional doorknob. I ran inside my bedroom, slamming the door behind me with such a force, it shook my room. I hate when that happens, I said aloud to myself, referring to the feeling I was just forced to feel. Deciding to try to calm my nerves down a little, I started singing some goofy little tune, not knowing what was going to happen in a few moments. I took off my shirt, to put on my night shirt. And then hop into bed, where I would think I was safe from whatever was peering at me. As I was walking towards my bed, only 2 paces in front of me, there was a snapping pop in mid-air. Taken aback, and quite frankly on the verge of sharting my pants, a figure appeared with the pop. Right in front of my eyes, stood this being, pitch black. Like he was hiding out in a chimney his whole existence. His eyes were void of color, or any human emotion, or expression. I'm not quite sure how long him and I just stared at each other, it could have been 2 seconds or 10 minutes. Because it felt like a lifetime. The absolute terror, as I looked into this thing's eyes ate me up. It was like staring at something you know could kill you in that second, but is choosing not to. Something with such emptiness, that all that is there is just a void. Feeling as though my soul was violated, I scrambled to run for the door. Grabbing the door handle, I swung the door open. As I was making my bolt, out of the cellar and into the dark, I looked back and saw it staring at me, with those empty eyes. I ran with swiftness across the gravel, on my bare feet, until I got to the back door of the cabin. I ran inside to my brother T's room, sobbing and shaking uncontrollably. The first thing he said to me was, "Did you see a ghost or something?" But quickly coming over to comfort me. He still says, to this day, that he has never seen me or anyone else look so horrified. After he was able to calm me down a little bit, we decided to go tell my parents. They were both super Christians. And my father to the point of being cult-like. I told them I saw a demon, and they saw how shook up I was. But quickly they both denied it, completely dismissing whatever I saw. They never brought it back up to me after that night. My parents were gracious enough to let me sleep in one of our guest rooms, for the night one, probably because I refused to sleep in my bedroom after that. Nothing more happened that evening, besides me tossing and turning, wondering what on earth just happened to me. But I do have quite a few other stories, that are quite notable. If you guys would like to hear them sometime. This was the one I chose to share today though, because I feel like it is the one that was definitely the most bone-chilling to encounter. I appreciate you taking the time to read about my experience. Feel free to leave comments, questions, I appreciate feedback. Here are some of the comments from this post. Protagonist Thomas commented, "I am T in this story, and I can confirm that this actually happened. I remember the day OP came to my room, and to this day, I've never seen someone so frightened, almost to the point of shock. Let alone a child. And OP, I don't know if you remember correctly, but our parents blamed it on Pokemon cards. Quite literally, our father burned all our Pokemon cards the next day. After this thing took place. This wasn't the only time we saw something freaky happen at the house. There is something very off about that place." OP responded to protagonist Thomas. "I do recall that, yes. All of my Pokemon cards. Quite literally hundreds of them. He didn't care to investigate logically, he just cared about what he could blame it on." The new Columbo also commented, "It sounds like your parent knew more than they wanted to say, and wanted to keep things hush-hush. For fear of the friends at church thinking bad things about them. Are you okay now?" OP responded to the new Columbo, "It was either that or denial. But you have a solid point. I forgot to add, afterwards. In the next week, my dad decided to burn all of my Pokemon cards. Because he thought the devil was in them. So in the end, it was really just a blame on me and what I enjoyed. I'm doing good now though, ever since I've moved out of there. I haven't had any spooky shit happen, for the most part. I just wish I knew what happened that night. What I saw. I'm left with so many questions with no answers." The new Columbo responded to OP. "Let me tell you, I am a Christian. Which is just a sinner like everyone else, but saved by grace. And I never would have treated you like that. My guess would be there is more to that family's history than you have been made aware of. Or there is something going on with that property, and its history. But don't blame yourself, and as far as your owners go. Sometimes scared people don't always do the right thing." Protagonist Thomas responded to the new Columbo. "I'm T from the story. The property was just a large plot of forestry that spans around 64.5 acres. My parents were the first to inhabit the property, besides maybe the indigenous population. Decades before my dad bought the place. We have found evidence of indigenous people using the land for at least hunting. Because I personally found spear and arrow heads, made of river rock when the ground got tilled for a new law. Josette 22 chimed in. I think your father burning the Pokemon cards is terrible. My grandson has a large collection of Pokemon cards, and he even has an album book to store them in. Kids like these type of harmless things. A long time ago, kids used to like to collect garbage pail kids cards. And they have always enjoyed collecting other cards, like baseball cards. I do know that there are these types of creatures in the forest that like to frequent garages, abandoned buildings and houses, sheds and the like. Here is a link to a post I wrote about one of these creatures, from the forest. I hope this will be helpful. I certainly hope you were able to sleep in your brother's room, in the main house after this incident. Let me know, in the comments below, what you think about OP's experience. Did OP's parents know more than they were letting on? I was a little nervous before, because I saw some kind of animal I can't explain. And also, I feel absolutely crazy for even thinking that it may, or may not be a werewolf. I haven't really talked about this much, only to one of my closest friends, who I'm pretty sure thinks I'm making this all up. I had taken a small trip, and rented a cabin in Wisconsin. I'm not gonna go into much detail on the location, due to the fact that I own property there, as well as my family. Now anyway, this cabin is close by the lake. And there's maybe, like 1 or 2 other cabins in the area, that are close by. Otherwise it's just all foresty, and kinda isolated. Except for the occasional minimal boat traffic, in the distance. So one night me and a few of my friends, that I brought with me to the cabin. There were 4 of us in total, including 2 children, my daughter and my friend's son. Decided we were gonna have a bonfire. The fire pit is located toward the rear of that cabin, and beyond that is woods. So facing away from the lake. Waiting for it to get dark, we collected some firewood from the stacks. And set everything up as normal, like we've done every other time we've been out here. Everyone had gone inside to get blankets and such, and me and my daughter were still outside. My daughter was closer to the deck, sitting on the steps. And I was near the fire pit. I poured some lighter fluid on the wood and tossed in a match. The fire slowly began to grow. As I'm looking out past the fire, I notice a fairly tall creature with shaggy dark fur. So I saw this thing just staring directly at me, with yellow glowing eyes. It had an elongated face, looked to be very dog, and was making a heavy breathing noise, as if it was struggling to inhale. I instantly dropped everything I was holding, ran towards the deck, lifted my daughter up, and ran for the door. Once inside, everyone asked what happened, and why I was so scared. Just as everyone was trying to comfort me, an eerie howl could be heard from outside. Much louder than I've heard before. And everyone else heard it too, but they chalked it up to being a wolf or a coyote. I know what I saw was no ordinary wolf, and a bear just didn't seem plausible. This thing was tall, and thin around the middle. Hunched over and wheezing. I am not entirely sure what this was. And yes, we did go back outside moments later to put out the fire, and there was no sign of it. I mean, not that I'd go looking anyway. What do you guys think it could have been? Here are some of the comments from this post. Home is Outer Space commented. Was it standing? Maybe a wolf with rabies. Some disease? My friend's dog is nearly double the size he's meant to be. Nature is whack. OP responded to Home is Outer Space. It was standing, but like hunched over. Home is Outer Space responded to OP. A very skinny. Diseased? Both there. I believe in the paranormal, and a few cryptids. Though I'd call myself a skeptical believer, in the sense that I look for what it could be then. If it's totally unexplainable, I'll call it paranormal, etc. OP responded to Home is Outer Space. I totally could see it being a bear minus the long face. And the eyes were super yellow. Like a dull glow to them. But it definitely could been. I'm not 100%. I'm still having a rough time believing what I saw. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. What do you think OP encountered? Was it a cryptid or a normal animal with rabies or mange? I believe I have discovered a new cryptid. Or well, me and my younger brother. It was terrifying, even if the first encounter was for literal seconds. We were taking out the trash together one night, during the summer. My brother wanted me to come with him, because there have been animals going missing lately. And our parents assume it's been coyotes. We went out to take it, and I was looking out at the forest line, in our backyard. If it wasn't for the back porch light, I wouldn't have seen the thing. It was running straight at us. It was about 6 feet tall, humanoid, and slightly hunched over. With its legs spread out, so were its arms. I would have thought it was an actual naked person, if it wasn't for the fact. It had no genitals, hair, body hair, or a face. It was completely featureless. Its skin looked like a whitish pink. I thought I was going insane. I asked my brother if he saw it. He looked over, and immediately sprinted to the house and followed behind. And I could hear the thing's feet smack against the hard ground, as it moved faster to catch one of us. Luckily, we had a head start and got inside. We looked out the window to see if it was still there, but it was gone. And it was like the thing disappeared the second it realized it wasn't getting to us. Our parents asked us what's wrong, we're both teenagers. And you neither of them would believe a word of, so we lied. We said that we heard howling and got scared. We then, both went to our room and questioned one another. On what we think we saw, I first said on 3 we should say the color of the thing's skin. We counted it to 3 and both said pink, and both of our faces went pale. We knew we both weren't just seeing things. We had no proof, we had no other witness to it. It was just the two of us knowing that there was something roaming the woods, behind our house. More animals have gone missing in our neighborhood, some of our own animals too. So far it has gotten 4 of our cats, and 2 of our chickens. I never found the cats, but it did leave the chickens in the coop we had them in. It was like it was sending a message. The chickens' limbs were ripped off, and then it was ripped in half. There was blood everywhere. I sometimes feel like it stalks me, in the woods. I never go near them at night, but I do sometimes go in them during the day. It feels like there's constantly something over my shoulder. Sometimes I hear fallen beaches break like something heavy stepped on it. I'll find limbs placed weirdly like in stacks. I have no idea what it is, all I know is that I will figure it out. If anyone has heard of something like this, please tell me. Let me know what you think, in the comments below. What do you think OP and their brother experienced? Is it a new cryptid or something known? This happened years back. I was about 12. Me and my family went camping, in a cabin by the Porcupine Mountains. In the Upper Peninsula. We arrived at evening, and my parents starting unpacking everything. And as a curious child, I wandered off but not too far. I was collecting rocks, sticks and other things. And I was playing on the hill, behind the cabin. And as the sun started to set, I saw our owl in the tree. A couple yards away, as I was getting closer to take a good look. Then I heard a low growl and froze. I thought it could have been a cougar, or coyote, etc. I took a look around, and I didn't see anything. A couple seconds later, I heard my mom call my name. So I got brave enough to run as fast as I could, down the hill and ran into her arms. I told her what happened, but she just shrugged it off. Shortly after we ate hot dogs, then went into the cabin to go to sleep. My parents got a bedroom and my aunt did too. I decided to sleep on the couch that night. As I was trying to sleep it started to rain, but that wasn't the only thing I heard. There was tapping, or attaching, or some sort by the window in the kitchen. I was a brave child, so I went to check it out. I looked out the window, and saw what I thought was a bear, dog, wolf, who knows. Quickly run off, and I could have sworn it stood up, when it disappeared into the woods. And that's not all. When I went back to lay down in fear, I heard a scream, but I thought it could have been a fox maybe, who knows. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think about OP's experience? What do you think OP encountered? Was it a dogman, or a known animal? Okay, so back in 2012. I was with my, at the time, age 12 and 13 brothers. One of their friends, my mom, and my dad. We were in the Asheville, North Carolina area, at the Mountain State Fair. As we were headed home, my mom took a back way to avoid traffic. That went through a couple neighborhoods. As we were driving, we saw what we thought was a dog in the road, but as we got closer it turned its head to the right. Still sitting in the same spot. It definitely looked like a dog. We came even closer, and as we were right on it, close enough to see the brown fur slightly through the shadow, it stood up, and started walking off the road. Only to stand up, on 2 feet, and take a humanoid dog form. The form looked like a dog head, with pointed ears. And a skin and bone human male-like frame, with a tail. We could see its rib outline, and then his stomach area retreating into itself. It was so skinny. It still had dog-like thighs and legs, but its top half was more human. I guess, is the best description. I thought I was seeing things, as it ran off down a neighborhood road. Before I could even say anything, my mom and my brother's friend asked if we saw that. And everyone said yes. We, to this day, cannot figure out what it was. But the odd thing is, a couple months ago, when the fair was here again, my co-worker mentioned they saw this weird animal with a very similar description when leaving the fair. And I told them my family's story, and they were freaked out because their sighting matched my description. What could this sighting be? Let me know in the comments below. What do you think OP encountered? Was it a dogman or a known animal? So to give a little context to this short story, I grew up in a very religious household. We never talked about the supernatural, outside of angels and demons. I never knew about cryptids or creatures of the night. The scariest creature I knew of, at the time, was Bigfoot. Despite this lack of acknowledgement of the potential existence of extra-human things, I have always had an interest in and affinity for the unexplainable. At the time of the story, I had just turned 8. My family decided it would be a great idea to take a trip to northern Ontario, to site camp amongst the lovely fall trees. After a few hours of diving, we finally made it. We had got all set up, tent, fire pit, the like. I was helping my dad cut some firewood, when we realized my brother, 6 at the time, was nowhere to be found. Now, realistically my dad was doing most of the work. So during the time it took to set up camp, it had already become mid to late evening. So it was starting to get dark. As expected, panic set in, as we looked around for him. We were checking everywhere. That is when my parents told me to stay at camp, in case he came back. And headed off to look farther out. I was alone for maybe 15 minutes, when I thought I heard someone moving through the underbrush behind the edge of our camp. I promised myself I'd stay put, since I was the only one at camp, in case my brother came back. That's when I heard my brother's voice calling out for help, from the same direction where I had heard the rustling. So against my better judgment, I started walking. I took the walking stick I had picked up earlier that day, and held it tight since I was worried that there are a lot of wild animals in the forest. Making my way through the underbrush was tough work, since it was thick and I had short legs, at the time. My sense of unease grew the whole time, but I chalked it up to the fact that I was worried for my brother. After 5 minutes of walking, and I made it to the base of a small cliff that had a steep but climbable section, and I decided to climb up and see if I could see my brother. I spent a few minutes clambering up the slope, and scraped myself up pretty good on a route, but I made it to the top. The view from the top, on a better day, would have been rather pretty. Tall trees with yellow and orange leaves covering the ground, and mixing with the underbrush. I made several sweeps of the area, but didn't find any sign of my brother. It was then that I felt a massive wave of that unease I had been experiencing since I left the campsite. This time magnitudes are stronger. I made another half-hearted scan of the area, before heading back. My mistake was that I was only looking down, off of the cliff, and the surrounding lower area, and not behind me. As I turned to make my way down the slope, I was something. At first, I thought it was just a copse of birch trees at the edge of this bit of a clearing. I then saw movement, minor but noticeable. It was like a branch hanging from the canopy, but it bent, then bent a bit more. I followed the branch with my eyes, until I saw it. It was a man, or something like it. It had to have been 7 or more feet tall, since it was nearly as tall as some of the trees. It was pale as a sheet of paper, which helped it blend in with the birch trees. It was very spindly, and it was staring at me. I will never forget its face. It reminded me of Gollum, from The Lord of the Rings. When he lashes out, but constantly and more gaunt and stretched. My body froze, but I knew I had to get home. Back to my parents, or just anywhere but here. So I slid and tumbled my way back down the slope I had come from, bussing and scraping myself on the way. Thankfully, I had been very careful to know my way back to camp, as I didn't want to get lost myself. I remember thinking that no matter how fast I ran, that thing could easily catch me. I made it back to camp safely, but my parents were not back yet. I hid in the van, and must have fallen asleep from the adrenaline crash. Because the next thing I knew, my dad had opened the sliding door, and was shaking me awake. I tried to explain what I saw to my parents, but obviously, they didn't believe me. They had found my brother down by a nearby river. He and other kid he had made friends with had followed the river upstream, and had gotten lost. Thankfully the park rangers had this happen before, so they found him, scared but unhurt. We stayed the night, without much incident besides raccoons getting into our improperly stored food. The next morning Dad and Mom decided to pack up, and we headed home shortly after. I have told very few people this story, and fewer have believed me. But I know what I saw, because it is seared into my brain. I have some small scars to this day from the descent down the slope, so I know it wasn't a dream. It was only years later, did I hear about the Wendigo and similar creatures. No matter what happens, I will never be able to forget that creature. Or the fact that my brother's voice calling for help. And that the cliff I climbed up was in the polar opposite direction of the river. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think OP encountered? What was mimicking his brother's voice? This is kind of a long story, I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible. I just recently moved to Oklahoma. Recently, I keep having very uncomfortable experiences outside. Especially in the evening or night time. It started when I went to go put laundry in the wash one day. We have a laundry room attached to our building, and it was broad daylight. So I wasn't exactly feeling nervous about anything. I got about 20 feet from the alleyway to the washroom. And I smelled the worst rotting animal smell I've ever smelled in my life. Not only that, as soon as I smelled it, I got the strongest flight or fight reaction I've ever felt. I ran back to my unit, locked the door, and had a small anxiety attack. I waited about 15 to 20 minutes before going back out, and when I did, there was no smell. And I felt normal. Fast forward about a week later. My husband and I were outside at about 1 a.m., smoking a cigarette, when we heard what sounded like a dying dog. We live right off of a major interstate, so we assumed an animal must have been hit. We started walking towards the direction of this noise, sort of a wheezing whine. A terribly sad noise, when we got to the edge of our parking lot. As we got onto the pavement, the wheezing dog noise turned into what sounded like an owl hooting. I understand owls make strange noises, I was raised in Texas. I've heard many, but this was not an owl. The longer we listened to it, the more it sounded like a person trying to mimic an owl. My husband called out, "Hey, is someone there?" pretty loudly, and just silence was the response. We stood quiet a few moments, before the owl noise completely stopped. And the sound of an unnatural laugh echoed from the trees. The only way I can describe this noise, is it was like when a deaf person laughs. Like they can't hear how they sound, so it just kinda sounds a bit off. I don't mean to sound rude at all, truly. That's just the only way I know how to describe it. It felt like ice water was in my veins, as soon as I heard it. Both of us just felt extreme fear, in that moment. And ran back to the house. I could explain off all of these things, if I hadn't seen what I had seen next. A few days later, I was outside smoking around 7 p.m. And I saw 2 men walking on the side of the street where I had heard the noise a few nights prior. They walked past the trees a little ways, but then stopped. It was dusk, so light was low. One of them turned on their phone light and shined it into the trees before jumping back. Both men took off at a full sprint away from the tree line. I have no idea what they saw, I didn't hear anything. But there was pure fear there. The most frustrating part was, I was looking right at them and saw absolutely nothing. Fast forward about a week later. I get a text, while I'm at work, from my husband, telling me he heard our daughter talking and laughing in the field across the street. He was 100% sure it was her, until he realized she was inside in her room. He said it sounded just like her. Fast forward again, a few days later. I found dried blood on my door jamb, as well as scratches near my doorknob, and more dried blood at the bottom of my door. My neighbor had their internet cables cut, and told me that someone had tried to open their door the night it happened, and then slammed their body against the door trying to break in. My neighbor said he forced himself out the door, ready to confront whoever was there, but there was no one. We constantly hear things on the roof, things in the alley behind our place. Our dog will run to the door at random hours, and sniff and growl like someone is there. I have probably made a mistake, by calling out to this thing, whistling at night, trying to antagonize it, because I desperately want a recording. I have one recording of its noises. It sounds like an owl. But towards the end there's this low inexplicable moan, that comes from the same place the owl sounds are coming from. It's hard to hear and ends very abruptly. I don't feel like this is good enough. No one believes me, but something is out there. It knows I know it, I feel it watching me. If I curse at it or try and lure it out, it goes completely silent or does that horrible laugh. I can never seem to catch the laugh, or any of the noises. As soon as I hit record, it usually stops. I don't know how to explain this, but I know I'm not crazy. Please, if someone can help me. I really want to know what this thing is. I have pictures of the blood on my door, the scratches, and the video of the owl sounds, moan. I just feel like no one will take this seriously. It always smells like a corpse when it's around. That's the biggest sign something isn't right. I brought it up to one of my native co-workers, and he said leave it be. Wash the blood from your door, and stop trying to talk to it. He wouldn't tell me anything else. I don't know if this is a Wendigo, a Skinwalker, or something else entirely. But I have never felt such dread and fear as I do when I hear or smell it out there. Please, someone, anyone. If you know what this is, please tell me. I'm not losing my mind, and if it's real, how do I make it go away? This thing is causing me so much stress. Thank you for reading. Edit. Thank you to everyone who took the time to share advice and thoughts on this. To those who are concerned about me putting myself in danger, thank you. And I'm inclined to agree with you all. But understand, I'm still not sure if this is just a weird animal I'm hearing, and nothing paranormal at all. I will be avoiding it from this point forward, just in case it is something that wants to eat my face. I will, however, update this post if anything else worth mentioning happens. Thanks again. Edit 2. I have found the reason for the scratches on the door. It is not anything paranormal. Still cannot explain the blood. There are a ton of comments for this post, too many to post on this video. The link is in the description below, if you would like to dig deeper into this story. In the comments below, let me know what you think OP encountered. Was it a Bigfoot, a Wendigo, a Skinwalker, a mimic, or something more mundane? A few days ago, I was eating food at my computer. And I turned around for 2 seconds. I saw a black wolf with red eyes looking at me. It was very clear. And I still remember it very clearly. Can someone explain what it meant, or what it was trying to tell me? I can't stop thinking about it, and I had similar encounter with a spirit seagull 2 years ago. But I'll write about it another time. I'm just really freaked out by that wolf, and I don't know what it was. I have had many encounters with entities, while high on mushrooms. And during sleep paralysis, but these ones while I'm completely sober. And appear out of nowhere, creep me out the most. I don't know why, but out of everyone around me, I seem to be the most interesting person to mess around with, which freaks me the F out. But if I could get some info on the black wolf, that would be great. Thanks. Here are a few comments from this post. Exposing the Shadow commented. It's what is called Dogman, or something similar. But I think it's a shadow being, jinn, demon. They can shapeshift into anything. A blonde and a redhead responded to exposing the shadow. That's what I was thinking too. Shadow person, jinn. My family has been seeing a lot of them, lately. Sometimes as a full-on shadow of a human body, sometimes just puffs of smoke. And sometimes like black animals. Sometimes with those red eyes, but not always. No Gazelle 9557 asked. Is something in chaos in your life right now? OP responded to No Gazelle 9557. Yes, there is actually. I'm just about to quit my job, and focus on studying. I'm selling my car, and I'm gonna fully commit to programming. It's kind of daunting experience for me. I will have no income, and my future will be defined on whether I give up or push through this time, for next few years. Someone commented it's a bad omen to see it. Now I'm getting more scared, and if it is about this, it actually would make sense why I saw it. I didn't really think about it in the whole perspective, until I read comments. No Gazelle 9557 responded to OP. Want to know what I believe, as well as many cultures do? This is a sign that your world's in disarray, and you need to make a decision. A superficial understanding will be that it's bad. Or you should be scared. You already are scared, and now make a decision and act. It's why I asked what I did. It's not a sign that anything's going to be bad. It's a sign you're already in fear. However, I'm not telling you what to believe, but personally I find fear takes more energy than I tend to have. OP responded to No Gazelle 9557. This makes sense. I just called a friend to get his take. And he said something similar. That everything that's happening is causing my brain to stress, and the wolf could have been a projection of fear. Thanks a lot for the insight. I think I just need to live, and see what happens. I need to just calm down, and focus on what I need to do. And I hope things work out. There are many more comments for this post. Too many to post on this video. If you want to dig deeper, the link is in the comments below. Let me know, in the comments what you think OP encountered. Was it a normal wolf and OP caught the eye shine, or was it a dogman? This has been a crazy ride. And I'll bring you updates, in future videos. If you've stuck with me till the end, you're amazing. If you want to see more of our compilation videos, or any of the other videos in my other series, hit the subscribe button, and the notification bell, to never miss a future video. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. And leave a comment down below. If you would like your encounter featured on a future video, you can send it to contacthistoryunicorn@gmail.com. You can submit anonymously, or I can give you a shout out. Just let me know your preference in the email. Until next time, be safe out there. You never know what you might find.